Starship Troopers opened in 1997 to a mixed response. A satirical science fiction story of interstellar warfare, the film completed director Paul Verhoeven's Dutch trilogy and has grown in reputation to sit among his most beloved films. My name's John, and the guys doing their part with me are Westy.
They sucked his brains out.
And Matt.
The enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand.
All the right movies are in the 23rd century to talk brain-sucking bugs and bloodthirsty bigots, so come on, you apes. You want to live forever? Hello and welcome to All the Right Movies, Roughnecks, Death from Above, and a podcast on classic and hit films.
Absolutely.
This week, we're back with the Dutch Master.
Yes. The Dutch Master. I love that.
We're with Paul Verhoeven in Bug City as we get into Starship Troopers.
Yes.
Is that insane enough for you?
Not yet.
It'll get there.
It will be.
It will be.
Before we begin the book hunt, a quick word about Patreon wouldn't go amiss.
Why not?
So if you're a regular listener to our ATRM Classic podcasts, you can help support what we do by becoming an ATRM patron. Patrons get access to our bonus podcast episode called Double Feature and access to our whole podcast archive full of bonus episodes and archived ATRM Classic episodes. There's hundreds of hours worth of content in there now, including the other two entries in the Dutch trilogy, RoboCop and Total Recall.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or if a bunch of space soldiers blasting insectoid monsters is your thing, Aliens is there too.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. As well as a few episodes where Westy mentions Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah, of course, it might be on this as well. You never can tell.
Lots of non-science fiction as well, so join up now by visiting patreon.com/all the right movies, or you can subscribe directly on Apple Podcasts or our hosting platform Podbean. Whichever you choose, service guarantees citizenship.
Oh, absolutely. I don't need to know more.
For the time being, though, we're talking Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Your choice, wasn't it, Westy?
It was.
So why did you put it up?
Can I just say, Starship Troopers is the best film ever made.
A masterpiece, according to you, isn't it?
I'm not even joking. What a fucking joy this is. It's just one of the most misunderstood films of all time, which makes it even more fun. Cultural fascism at its very best. The satire at its very best. Americanism, colonialism, patriotism, militarism, it's all in there and it's all just a feast on, but it's so much fun at the same time. Never ever takes itself seriously. I mean, I remember seeing this in the cinema and I don't even remember how many times I went to see it. It was just, I wasn't doing anything. I'll go to the cinema. I wasn't doing anything. I just walk up, Starship Troopers is on again. I'll just go and see that again because it was just so much fun. Just ticked every single box for me at the age that I was at. It's razor sharp. It's really funny. And it's really, really, really fucking intelligent. And it knows it is. And it plays on that. And this is just going to be so much fun to talk about. There's so many things to dive into. I've got about 19 Westy theories on this.
Oh, lovely.
So there's lots to get into here. And I'm very, very excited to talk about it. I think it's going to be lots of fun.
Yeah, I saw this when I was a teenager as well. Rented it from my local video store. Didn't go to the cinema. Zodiac Video.
Did you not go to the cinema? Oh, you missed out.
But I loved it. I mean, space travel, set in the future, a bit like Aliens, and Denise Richards.
There we are.
Everything a teenage me wanted.
Yep, absolutely.
In fact, the following week, I went back to Zodiac and rented Wild Things and had my mind blown all over again.
In a totally different way, though.
But Starship Troopers loved it at the time, so much so that I then read the book by Robert Heinlein, which is very different.
Yeah.
And mostly I was stunned to revisit the film a few years later and see all this like political commentary and satire that I was totally oblivious to the first time round.
Yeah, same, yeah.
There's so much to get into. We'll talk about that subtext, we'll talk about the book, and like any Verhoeven production, there are some crazy and outrageous behind the scenes stories.
Yes, they really are.
So would you like to know more? Surely you would.
Absolutely. Let's click that next button.
And Matt, are you doing your part?
I'm always doing my part. You know that. Want to be a citizen.
That is true enough, yeah.
Starship Troopers. This is one of those films where I've done a real 180 on it over the years because I don't mind a bitten. Did not get it at all when I saw this in the cinema.
Oh, really?
It really went over my head, and I became that annoying guy whenever this film got brought up. I'd like, Starship Troopers, More like Starship Troopers. Am I right?
Nice.
I
Starship Troopers.
That's quite good for you, man.
I mean, some people would say I've not improved since then.
What happened to that sparkling wit?
Hit the pinnacle in 96.
But yeah, that was me, and I can't quite remember when or why, but I did watch it again years later, and it just clicked.
Yeah.
And I got it, because, yeah, there is this surface layer to it that is quite distracting in a lot of ways, and if you get hung up on that surface layer, you'll never get it. But once you get past it, you realise what Verhoeven is doing, and it's just a wonderful, joyous thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get it either when I first watched it, but I still loved it.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, because Denise Richards is in there.
That's one of the reasons, yeah.
There's other reasons.
So Starship Troopers was produced by TriStar Pictures and Touchstone Pictures, distributed by TriStar, and released on November the 7th, 1997. Filmed on location in California, South Dakota and Wyoming, it was directed by Paul Verhoeven, written by Edward Neumeier, adapted from Robert Heinlein's novel of the same name, and stars Caspar Van Dien as Johnny Rico, Denise Richards as Carmen Ibanez, Neil Patrick Harris as Carl Jenkins, and Dina Meyer as Dizzy Flores.
What a cast.
Amazing.
Let's go then, should we?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're joining the United Citizen Federation in the beginning of Starship Troopers.
The beginning.
Starship Troopers opened with a Federal Network communication asking for sign-ups for the mobile infantry. We'll talk about the FedNet ads later, as we're starting with our character introductions.
Yeah.
The craziness of boot camp is coming, but we're starting before that at high school.
We are.
Yeah.
So, Buenos Aires, Argentina in the 23rd century. We're at the education centre and don't hang about in meeting almost every main character. Rico, Carmen, Carl and Diz are all here, as these scenes bring us teacher Jean Radchek and his questionable politics, should we say?
Yeah, it's full on.
As well as a brutal game of jump ball and the gang's prom night party.
Yeah.
So, Westy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I could never have gone to school here. Everyone's just beautiful, aren't they? And everyone just looks amazing. Even if they're like crap at maths, it doesn't really matter. But like Ratchet is just so full on. Ironside is having so much fun here.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful to see him just fire on all these cylinders. Everything he says is just so thick with just meaning and patriotism. And it's like something given has no value. It's like he must be great at Christmas. You know what I mean? He just keeps reinforcing how good violence is.
Yeah.
Force is violence. Violence is good. That's how you get through things. He brings up Hiroshima, for fuck's sake.
I know.
Like, wow. Jesus, how on the nose does this need to be? And people are still now missing the point with all of this, because then it's overshadowed with these beautiful people. And this back and forth romance, this kind of horrible teeny bopper romance, gets cockblocked by some bubble gum. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of them moments where you just think, this is just ludicrous, but at the same time, it's really got something to say from the very start. And it's just a classroom scene. So Verhoeven's not scared to just lay it on thick, lay it on fast, lay it straight in your face, and he does it so well. And Ironside is so good at doing that here.
Yeah, I like all the school scenes. Sets up the far-right opinions that people generally have in the film.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, Radchek talking about Hiroshima like it was a great historical event is mental.
It's either far right or far left, though, isn't it? It's both at the same time. It's just like these extremes.
Yeah, I mean, it does hit hard nowadays, I think, because like talking about how our social scientists brought the world to the brink of chaos, which Radchek says, that kind of rhetoric sounds really familiar nowadays.
Yeah.
Fashion hasn't changed much either, has it? It's 2297, but apart from the Nazi uniforms, everyone's dressed like it's 1994.
Yeah, it's really Beverly Hills 90210, isn't it?
I was waiting for someone to show up in one of those T-shirts that change colour when you breathe on them. Remember that?
Global hypercolour. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But I do want to talk a bit about the jump ball sequence, the sport that we see Rico play.
Yes.
Which looks insane. Do you remember Speedball, the video game from the 90s?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
I had it for my Commodore 64, and it was basically jump ball. A bunch of lunatics with a ball kicking the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
The jumps and the flips are crazy, but I love it.
It's kind of like rollerball, isn't it, Well, with Con?
Yeah, I think it's influenced by that. It must be.
Very much, yeah.
I think the whole feel of it with the action shot really close up and the kind of booming noise of the crowd, really intense. I think it's a good action scene. Something that gets set up here that doesn't change for me is that I instantly can't stand Xander. Rico's nemesis.
Not supposed to, are you? He's so smarmy. He's horrible.
He is. Patrick Muldoon plays him really well, but he's so smug. He wastes no time with Carmen. He ends up in the crowd. She asks him if he's all right. He doesn't know her at all and just goes, I am now. What are you doing after the game? Yeah. Straight in.
Absolutely sweating as well.
Yeah, really sweaty.
He's like the first person to go onto Wikipedia to change it to was when someone dies.
But I think it's a good way to show us Rico's competitive side, and Xander and Diz helps us buy it more easily when they all turn into killers later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know that Dina Maya, who plays Diz, she improvised hitting Rico on the head to get his attention in the huddle.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's a massive hit as well, that though.
Yeah.
Like, he's really pissed off when he turns around.
Yeah. Well, someone's got to slap some sense into him.
Well, going to take a fucking sledgehammer? How Look at it. So the moment where Rico scores a touchdown, he does a somersault over a couple of players, which is fantastic. That was performed by a stuntman called Joey Box. He did a flip from a ladder and they cut it at the right time, and the ladder was removed digitally in post.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it looks good.
It looks really good.
Yeah, Joey Box has worked on some Star Trek stuff as well as stuntman, which is maybe why they got him in there.
Here we go.
Similar kind of thing. That's all I've got.
Oh, good. Thank God. Thought it was going to be peppered throughout.
Oh, for now, I mean. That's all I've got for now.
All right, okay, just for this sequence.
But I mean, the stunts make no sense. Why are they all superheroes jumping like 20 feet in the air? But I think overall it does work well. It sets up the like not totally serious tone Verhoeven wants, and the kind of kill or be killed attitude that's drummed into young people at school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the graduation party after this because this scene is so funny. It subverts every cliche you expect with it. Like, everyone's glam, dressed up to the nines. Carmen's father isn't home, so Rico's going to get some when they go back later. But then you have Carl. It's this horrible guy waving his hand in between Rico and Carmen's face. It's just like, oh, you absolute creep, leave them alone. And I hate that slow, like, finger snapping dancing that he's doing with Diz.
So disgusting.
It makes my skin crawl.
I would have punched him in the face if I'd seen him do that.
Certainly not for the first time this film needs a punch, yeah. So it does feel like it's going to be this stereotypical teen drama graduation scene. You know, she likes him, but he's with another girl. There's tension between these two. So there's this whole love triangle thing going on. And then Xander shows up dressed like a Nazi. I mean, It's not the last almost overt time someone will dress like a Nazi, but it's hilarious because that's not even the reason you're not supposed to like him. You're not supposed to like him because he's cracking on to Carmen. So this scene for me, it's just classic Starship Troopers. It looks like one thing on the surface, but there's something else to it entirely.
I think we've coined a new phrase there. That is classic Starship Troopers.
Yeah, they're not backwards and going forward, these Buenos Aires. Diz is all over Rico, even when he's with Carmen.
Yeah.
And Xander's still in there trying his luck. I know that the school scenes were all filmed at the Kaiser Permanente Medical Center in California, which I think looks really good as a setting. It's got like a futuristic kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it looks great.
And the scene where they all go to get the math test results, that opening shot's really good. There's a kind of Metropolis-style tilt down from the tower to Carmen and Rico in the foreground.
Yeah.
Goes from like a digital background to the set. Looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
And Rico's results, I'm surprised he even got 35%, to be honest. Thick as mince. Must have been an easy math test.
Yeah, but I mean, imagine all of your results on a massive screen in front of everybody.
Awful.
Oh, that would be horrible.
Yeah, dreadful. Bit after this I really like is the dissection scene because I really love those practical models of the smaller bugs, really gloopy.
Yeah, they're great.
And as soon as you see them being dissected, you know it's not going to go down well with Carmen. And when she vomits after Rico gives her the bug's organs, that's Richard's just spitting out mashed up bananas there.
Right.
Yeah, it's some real looking vomit, that. I'll buy it.
Really is.
And that bug, that practical effect, it looks brilliant. Do you recognise the teacher here as well?
Is she from Golden Girls?
She is, yeah. It's Blanche, isn't it? Is it Blanche?
Blanche, it is.
That's
Blanche,
right, yeah. Rue McClanahan is the actress. Blanche in the Golden Girls. I mean, she's blind and she's got scars all over her face.
Yeah.
Radchek's only got one arm.
Yeah.
All the adults here are like massively wounded.
Yeah.
And nobody ever thinks maybe this life of war isn't so great after all.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the book, the teacher is called Jean Dubois, and Radchek is the commander of the Roughnecks Division. So for the film, they've combined into one character called Gene Raznik.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good change, I think. It's for when he comes back. Works really well.
Brilliant when he comes back.
Yeah.
It's like seeing your uncle or something, and it's so comfortable. It's like, yes, all right, yeah.
Well, apparently Verhoeven considered casting Michael Douglas as Radchek after working with him on Basic Instinct.
Right,
Oh, wow.
fair enough.
Would have been a lot more sex talk.
Yeah, he wouldn't have given them 20 minutes of the tent, would he? No.
He'd have been in there with them.
Yeah.
20 minutes, I'm coming in.
And that's our introduction. We've met our main characters, taken in a spot of jump ball, and the Rico, Carmen, Xander, Diz love square has effectively been set up.
That's indeed.
Has.
Following graduation, Rico, Carmen, Carl and Diz signed up for the Terran Federation military. We end up at the Arthur Curry camp in Canada, where we also meet Jake Busey's Ace Levy and drill instructor Sergeant Zim, played by Clancy Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't know about you, Matt, but I would happily take a stroll down Washout Lane rather than knock about with this lot.
Bunch of apes. That's all they are. I love this training scene because when is Clancy Brown turning up in a film? Never a good thing.
Never ever.
Never.
And you talk about roles being tailor-made for someone. Him as a drill sergeant is absolutely perfect. Like, Shawshank is a couple of years before this, so you know he can do intimidating and he can be brutal. But this lets him be really funny as well. Like, whacking people with the baton because they don't have the guts sucked in or the feet on together or they need to put the chin up. When that one trooper starts laughing at him, and who wouldn't, let's be honest, and he just starts whipping him, run, run, run. It's hilarious.
Then he goes, keep pace.
Yeah. That other guy looks just as scared.
Yeah.
And I just think like that role of a drill instructor, it must be an absolute gift to any actor because they usually get the best dialogue. They can go OTT and you can't actually go too far with a character like this. And Clancy Brown is just wonderful. And when he asks if like one of them thinks they can take him down, and that poor guy steps up, but he does it really respectfully. He's not being a dick, like really cocky. He's like, "Oh, sir, I'll try," because he thinks he's going to get in good with him. And Zim just knocks him to the ground and snaps his arm. You all right, son? I mean, obviously not. You know you've just snapped his arm in two.
Yeah, so Rico signs up because Carmen does, and then Diz signs up because Rico does.
Yeah.
I mean, what's with all these people making life or death decisions based on who they fancy?
Isn't that what everyone does?
Yeah.
And when Rico signs up, the recruiting officer's like, "Mobile infantry made me the man I am today. One arm and no legs." I'm all right, thanks.
Yeah. Cheers, mate. Yeah.
But the boot camp sequences are all great. There's a clear influence from Full Metal Jacket, I think.
Oh, unbelievable. Yeah, definitely.
Lots of humour mixed in with the kind of brutal treatment the recruits get.
Yeah.
It seems like an even more ludicrous version of Drill Sergeant Hartman. And also there's that moment you mentioned, Matt, where Smith can't stop laughing like Private Pile.
Yeah.
And Diz says to Rico, "What's your malfunction?" All taken from Full Metal Jacket. No jelly donuts, which would have been a nice inclusion, but unfortunately not.
It would have been.
And then we get the scene where Zim throws a knife into Ace's hand.
That's so good.
Classic Starship Troopers.
Put your hand on that. Oh!
And I don't know what Ace is thinking, asking Zim questions.
Oh, no.
Don't question this guy.
No.
He's absolutely insane.
It's almost like he's leaning against the wall just with a tab, just being like, "All right, what's all this about?" It's ridiculous.
But you're right, Mark. Clancy Brown is always great. And I think the effects look really good as well. It's obviously a prosthetic arm attached to Jay Busey.
Yeah.
I mean, well, who knows with Verhoeven, but I assume it's a prosthetic arm.
Busey, to be
Probably
fair,
his real hand. Fuck it.
But either way, it looks really good. And really painful, right in the palm of his hand.
I know.
Yeah. I think his hand's like behind the grate, isn't it? You can see his arms kind of put behind the grate.
Right.
It must be, yeah. It looks good, though.
And I think the thing is about Clancy Brown's performance is that you completely forget about him in Shawshank Redemption. Because you would go, "Oh, that's the guy at Shawshank Redemption," but you don't get it at all. He just makes it so much more fun that you forget that's the same guy.
Yeah.
Put your hand on that wall.
And then, I mean, things just get even better from there, don't they? I mean, there's Quasar going on. I mean, who doesn't love a bit of Quasar, right? But you actually get an electric shock, which is great. But this sequence leads in to a theory that why are they using human targets when they should be training against, the bugs and understanding them and figuring out what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So you see the human targets and they're like big green figures that you used to play with when you were a kid. It's like Toy Story. So it's almost like training children how to kill things. Then the reality kicks in and Breckenridge gets his helmet in the way and he takes it off, goes, "Because I'm big and dumb." And that moment is so funny, but at the same time so shocking. When that gun goes off, she falls back and it's completely accidental. And she's the one who wants to get into politics. She wants to fight with words. She doesn't want to fight physically. And because she's fought physically, she gets kicked out. She's not ready for it. Violence is what we need. But when he gets shot and his face changes and there's that crash zoom into Rico's face and he shouts "medic," and you know for a fact this guy's had his head blown off. It's so funny. "Medic!" What the fuck's the medic going to do? Just walk up and be like, "Yeah, he's dead." There's no mention of the bugs here. Violence is the answer. Let's go straight to administrative punishment. Let's lash his back. So it's just so medieval in its punishments. There's nothing progressive about this whole society. But then again, I'm watching this and I'm like, if I look like that dude and everyone's standing looking at us, I would be all right getting whipped 10 times, just being like, all right, I look amazing. It's a lovely bit from Zim as well. He's like, bite down on this, it helps, I know.
Yeah.
He's gone through the same, and it's all just this cycle that keeps repeating itself. But what I really hate about the flogging sequence, it's mentioned by his dad. His dad says, I'd rather take 10 lashes in the public square. To foreshadowing from that. The whole thing is a promotional film for the mobile infantry. It's a film within a film. And this is just one of them major steps where you go, are we watching a promotional video within that universe? Where you just go, can I even trust this film? What am I watching? Can I really get into it? Or am I just being sucked in? And I think this is the perfect moment where Verhoeven starts that.
Yeah, all the training exercises. I think it's quite a good way of showing the teenagers being like turned by the system into killers. And after Breckenridge is killed, Jarnard, who is the one who accidentally shoots him, is dismissed. I mean, surely it's Rico's fault more than hers. So maybe you're right, Westy. Maybe there's something else going on behind why she gets kicked out.
Well, there is, yeah. And there's these real political undertones that are fantastic.
Yeah, all these moments are really brutal, but most brutal of all is Rico getting dumped by Carmen on a Zoom call in front of all his mates.
Man.
Never getting over that.
Yeah.
Horrific. In Jarnard and Breckenridge, they were played by Tammy, Adrian George and Eric Bruce Cotter. And they met on the shoot, and afterwards they got married and had children.
What, did they serve first?
And Verhoeven was best man.
Oh, wow.
That speech would have been fucking amazing.
Playing with fire, asked him to be your best man.
Speech is 3 hours long. Ed 209 coming in, shooting everybody. And like we're talking about there's Rico is whipped by Corporal Bronsky, played by T.O. Smoot. And he was taught how to use the bullwhip by one of the stuntmen, the one and only Vic Armstrong, who learned how to use it on Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Very nice.
You know, when they were filming it, Smoot kept moving forward and getting too close to Van Dien. Verhoeven shouted at him, but it made no difference, so they had to put sandbags on his feet to stop him moving. I mean, however, he needs to get really precise. Just move back a little bit. It makes no difference. Yeah.
Well, that's why he's mostly shot from the waist up to hide the sandbags.
Right, okay,
I think it's really well shot, that scene as well. It's really well lit. It looks really good.
Yeah, it looks great.
And then a bit after this, you get the shower scene, because obviously it wouldn't be a Verhoeven film if he wasn't getting some tits and ass in there. I mean, fair's fair, though. He's all about the equality. It's men and women naked here.
Finally. Thank God.
And also, to be fair, it doesn't feel lewd or sleazy, which is quite something coming from Verhoeven.
It doesn't. But didn't he strip off with everybody else just to make them feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Any excuse.
Well, it wasn't just him. It was the TB, Joss Ficano as well, because the actors were worried about the scene. And Verhoeven was saying, no, it's no big deal. And it was Dinah May who responded, well, you do it then. So he did.
Amazing.
And Ficano, he'd apparently been born in a nudist camp, according to Verhoeven. So he just got naked as well. And Verhoeven said, you know what? It really helped.
More of a problem for him to get dressed in the morning. Just turn up on set naked every day.
Born in a nudist camp. Yeah. That explains a lot, doesn't it?
It really does.
That would be a Springsteen song, wouldn't it?
I mean, yeah, they're all in the same shower. They are all treated the same, but not in a good way, I don't think. They're not all treated equally well, these people. They're all treated equally shit.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's identity is stripped away from them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, again, the way Smith's interviewing the other recruits, he says that he's a writer. Reminds me of Full Metal Jacket, where Private Joke as a writer.
Yeah, Verhoeven said he was shocked at the reaction the scene got, and said Americans get more upset about nudity than ultra-violence. I haven't seen any sex scenes in American film that are anything other than completely boring. A bare breast is more difficult to get through the censors than a body riddled with bullets, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, he's got a point.
Verhoeven likes both in his films.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Another thing about this scene as well, it's really interesting how they're all framed, and there's just these like nooses around the heads to turn the shower on, so these big circles, and everyone's looking through them as if they're all kind of facing the death anyway, which I think is really interesting.
Well, there's also a co-ed shower scene in RoboCop as well, if you remember.
Yeah, the whole locker room's exactly the same, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I saw an interview with Verhoeven where he said, in RoboCop, nobody noticed, so I thought, in Starship Troopers, I'll make sure they do. We definitely do.
Yeah.
And to make the boot camp and military scenes realistic, Verhoeven hired Dale Dye as military advisor, because he's a Vietnam War veteran and he'd been consultant on Platoon, Born on the 4th of July, Casualties of War, and he put the actors through a 1-week boot camp, and that's where they learned how to work weapons and how to work as part of a platoon.
Was this before Saving Private Ryan or after?
This was before, yeah. He has a cameo as well, Dale Dye, if you've noticed.
Yeah, he's right at the end, isn't he, with the brain bug?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. He's the guy who says, "What's it thinking, Colonel?"
Yeah.
To Carl.
Yeah.
I think it shows as well how seriously they were taking the battle scenes when they get someone like that in.
Yeah.
Because like you say, Wesley, the next film he worked on was Saving Private Ryan, so they're not messing about.
Yeah. Imagine him talking to Spielberg about this.
And that wraps things up on the beginning of Starship Troopers. There's already been enough crazy to fill 3 regular films, but so far, pretty entertaining, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's just started.
The director.
The director of Starship Troopers, as we've already mentioned, how can you not, was Paul Verhoeven. This was his 6th American feature film, his 12th overall, and as we said, it completed his satirical science fiction trilogy after RoboCop and Total Recall, the Dutch trilogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what can we say about Paul Verhoeven? Quite a lot, I'd imagine, Matt.
I mean, when do we stop talking about Paul Verhoeven once you start on this one? I mean, mention now, we did Total Recall not that long ago, and like my main takeaway from that film was like, he's just having a laugh. Like the whole thing was so tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a point to it, which bothered me. This is also tongue-in-cheek, but the difference is there's a point, and you get to the end, and it's like he stood waiting for you going, did you get it?
Yeah.
Do you understand why I have the actors in a certain way and the dialogue in a certain way?
Yeah.
And to get to that point, he's got to really hold his nerve about the tone of the film. It has to be so bombastic, because if he decides he needs to explain to the audience that he doesn't really mean it, the whole film will just feel completely patronising.
Yeah.
So to make some of these scenes as naff as they are, and they are naff, that takes real talent to make them feel like that on first watch. But then you come back and you think, no, it feels totally different now that I know what's going on. And it's funny, but it's horrifying at the same time. It's a very tricky thing to do. But I think he's pulled off such an incredible balancing act here.
He has. He's like a magician. He's got such an ulterior motive, but he's masked it so well.
He does. Really does, yeah.
I agree. I think he wears his influences on his sleeve as well. I think he's influenced by just about every classic science fiction film. I mean, Aliens is obvious.
It's all over, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the establishing exterior shots of the ships are very 2001, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interior shots on the ships always remind me of Star Trek, shot in a very similar way. Mm-hmm. And Rico in the medical tank is basically Luke Skywalker in the medical tank in The Empire Strikes Back. None of it feels like a rip-off, though, because Verhoeven is unique as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Satirical sci-fi is his thing, to the point where here, it feels like he's making 2 films in one. It's part science fiction action film, part anti-establishment satire.
Yeah.
He's done that kind of thing before and done it well. But here, what makes it work for me, even better than RoboCop, and certainly better than Total Recall, is that when you break it down, those 2 parts, I think, are really clearly defined and tonally really consistent.
Yeah.
The action film has very good set pieces, great design work, great effects, it's exciting, it's spectacular, the good guys are like heroes, quite classic stuff.
Yeah.
To make an anti-establishment satire based on that could have been confusing, because on one hand, Rico, Days, Carmen and the rest are brave, and on the other, the fascists.
Yeah.
At some point, Verhoeven's made that decision. They are brave and they do care about each other, but they also have some terrible beliefs. Mm-hmm. I think once you wrap your head around that point he's making, that even terrible people aren't 100% terrible, that's what makes them so dangerous as an ideology. You realise this isn't just a gung-ho shoot 'em up. At times it is, but I think managing those 2 different tones in the way that he does is a lot more difficult than Verhoeven actually makes it look. Starship Troopers does that even better than RoboCop for me, and this is probably my favourite Verhoeven film. I mean, I've not seen Spetters, to be honest, but I feel like I'm safe ruling that one out.
Yeah, I think so. You'll be fine. I mean, yeah, I think it's just so good because it's all very intentional. I don't think there's anything here that's been put on there by mistake. Every single beat of this, every camera move, everything visually, every performance is very intentional.
He feels totally in control of this, I think, whereas in Total Recall, maybe not quite so much.
Definitely
exactly.
Not, yeah.
I mean, you know that what he wants to do visually. I mean, there's some amazing blocking in this film. There's some stuff that's going on here from a filmmaking point of view that you will miss, because he's hiding satire in plain sight, and he's doing it with every single camera move. There's a great moment where they're just coming out of the classroom where they've had the results and they're making the whole pact, let's always be friends. Rico puts his arm around Carmen, it spins round again, and it's just one flowing camera move, and everything just feels like it's like a computer game. It's like the camera is just about like 4 inches by 4 inches big. The whole visual feeling of this film is really light. You fly through the film, and you don't think about the camera at all. He breaks the fourth wall on a news broadcast. That's the first thing you see in this film. is something that's supposed to be real, and then you see it again in real life. That's the way that he builds it. And the main thing, the takeaway from the direction of this film, is just the energy of it. And you can turn around and go, I think Starship Troopers is a pile of shit, and Paul Verhoeven will sit there with his arms folded and he'll just smile. If you think it's shit, you're the idiot. That is just such a wonderful thing to do, because what he's saying is so confident and so true and so right and so well executed, it's impossible to argue with.
Well, the reason Paul Verhoeven became involved in making Starship Troopers does go back to RoboCop.
Yeah.
The guy who came up with the idea for the film was the writer, Ed Neumeyer, who had co-written RoboCop. He took it to John Davidson, a producer on RoboCop, and there was only one guy they were ever asking to direct.
Oh, definitely.
The Dutch Master.
Who else could have done this?
Not like this.
Not like
Nobody.
this,
He's perfect for it. Yeah, he is perfect.
Yeah.
Well, there were actually rumours that the studio went to James Cameron first before Verhoeven, but he was already busy prepping Titanic. So when Verhoeven was hired, he did over 4,000 storyboards before filming.
Blimey.
And when you see interviews with the cast and crew about working with Verhoeven, Ed Neumeyer said, "You leave meetings with Paul feeling exhausted."
I bet.
Well, I mean, Clancy Brown said when they were filming battle scenes, he'd play the part of a bug for the actors, and in Brown's words, he'd be jumping up and down with a bullhorn going, "I'm a big fucking bug, I'll kill you."
There's great behind-the-scenes footage where they're filming the scene in the cave at the end when the bugs attack Carmen and Xander.
Right.
They're filming those kind of mid-tracking shots of Denise Richards.
Yeah.
With Verhoeven standing behind the camera, holding a broom in the air, screaming his head off.
Yeah. He's like crawling across the floor, isn't he? And then just like dives at her and does this big like clutch thing with his hands. It's brilliant.
And I mean, you can see that in the film. Well, not the broom, thankfully, but that passion, it's all there on the screen.
Yeah, it's this energy that's there. It's so palpable that you just dive into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So once he came in as director, the first thing Verhoeven did was read the novel by Robert Heinlein. He couldn't get past the first 2 chapters, though, and said it's a very right-wing book. And then just got Ed Neumeyer to tell him the rest of the story. He was like, it's just really boring.
Yeah, I know that Verhoeven said that he was constantly fighting with the book because all that satire and the kind of anti-fascist commentary we're talking about, that's not really in the book.
Right.
We'll talk more about how that came about when we get talking about the writing.
Yeah.
But in terms of putting it all on the screen as a director, Verhoeven does it brilliantly for me.
Oh, fantastic, yeah.
Well, when Michael Ironside first read the script, he said to Verhoeven, "Why are you doing a right-wing fascist movie?" And Verhoeven replied, "Well, if I say a right-wing fascist way of doing things doesn't work, no one will listen to me. So I'm going to make a perfect fascist world. Everyone is beautiful, everything is shiny, but it's only good for killing fucking bugs."
Potty mouth today, you, Matt.
I know. Doing my bit.
What's interesting as well is that I saw a talking with Verhoeven and Caspar Van Dien from, I think, fairly recently, where Van Dien said a film with this message probably wouldn't get made now. And Verhoeven said the only reason it got made then is because Sony, who owned TriStar, kept sacking TriStar's chairman. He said that 5 studio heads came and went in the time that he was making the film, and by the time the studio took any notice of what he was doing, he already had an assembly cut put together, so it was too late. I love that. Just doing what he wants.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is such a great fact. The production of Starship Troopers used more ammunition than any other movie up to that point. Fucking ridiculous. The weapons coordinator was Rock Gallotti, and he said they fired over 300,000 blank rounds during filming, and 17 gallons of fake blood were used throughout the movie. 300,000 blank rounds.
Now it sounds like a Verhoeven movie.
Yeah.
Now it does, yeah.
But I mean, nowadays, films would usually use CGI rather than blank, so that record will probably stand forever, I would think.
Yeah, and
Also, yeah.
No Oscar nomination for Paul Verhoeven for Starship Troopers. Not a massive surprise, I don't think.
obviously not.
But for us, in effectively combining high-octane action with thought-provoking political commentary, we think he did a very good job on the film.
Without
It's
shadow of
wonderful
doubt.
what he does, yeah.
It really is.
The cast.
The cast of Starship Troopers is a mix of newcomers to the industry and some more experienced heads, and we're going to go into some detail now on the newer and main cast members. Most of the young cast of Starship Troopers had already appeared in teen dramas on TV. 4 had been in Beverly Hills 90210, and the writer Ed Neumeyer called the cast Melrose Space.
Very nice.
We're going to talk about Denise Richards as Carmen Ibanez and Neil Patrick Harris as Carl Jenkins, but we're starting with the guy we spend most time with.
We are.
So Caspar Van Dien stars as Johnny Rico, and he has quite the character arc. Starting the film as a nice but dim fella who just wants to make out with his girlfriend, we follow Johnny as he signs up for the mobile infantry, loses his parents in the war, and climbs the military ladder, becoming a full-on fascist in the process.
Full-on fascist, yeah.
Verhoeven said that he wanted to cast people who looked like proto-fascists, so an insult straight away, Westy. How's Casper Van Dien as Johnny Rico?
I think he's... I mean, look... You can go all day and say it's Casper Van Dien, okay? Yeah. And we know that. And we know that the performance is hammy, and we know that. But I think he's really great in this role. He should be unwatchable. It should be so annoying that you want to turn it off. But it's just quite Moorish for me in how he's just really, really buying into this stereotype and how he really understands the assignment. Everyone's left their ego at the door, and the ego does get reinforced. But it's through comedy that it gets reinforced. It's not through, like, an amazing film. So it's not like Die Hard, do you know what I mean? Where he's coming away from that being like, you're a fucking incredible action star.
Yeah.
He knows for a fact they're ripping the piss out of him. And I think if this performance was any less hammy and he tried to make it a bit more serious, it would fail. If it was any more hammy and he tried to make it funny, it would fail. Yeah. And it just lands right in the middle for me. And there's some line deliveries in this that are just atrocious, but they need to be atrocious because it's at the right time. When he's like, yeah, I hope you find a crazy pilot. Out.
That's probably his worst line, I think, yeah.
That line, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. And he's like, he's just gone a little bit mad, sir. He's just gone a little bit mad. What? And he has like one joke in the film where he's like, you got a bug problem, ma'am. But he's happy with it, so I am. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm happy to watch him in it. I won't watch him in anything else, obviously. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, oh, Casper needs in this. But to have him as the face and the message of this propaganda film, which is what it is fucking perfect.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a double-edged sword for Casper Van Dien, this role.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a massive break for him into the industry, but also it became kind of accepted that he's as wooden as a herringbone floor as Rico. And I mean, watching it today, is he a great actor? No, he's not. But I think as a presence to lead the film, he does it quite well.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I think Casper Van Dien's all right in Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Obviously, he looks the part, blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin. Lenny Riefenstahl would have cast him in a heartbeat, and that's why Verhoeven did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Argentinians aren't known for their Aryan features, but I assume the idea is that Rico, Carmen, and Carl are meant to be like descendants from Third Reich members who fled to South America after the war, maybe?
Yes.
That's a nice idea, if it is so.
Yeah.
I think he's well written too. Rico has a huge arc. He holds 5 different ranks in the film as he keeps getting promoted. And while his career soars, his personality and his values plummet into supporting this fascist ideology. I know that Verhoeven said the theme of the film is that war makes fascists of us all, and Rico is the personification of that.
Yeah.
The first time we see him in the film, in the classroom scene that we talked about, he's disagreeing with the point that Radchek makes, but then follows directly in his footsteps.
Yeah.
Radchek's roughnecks become Rico's roughnecks, and the last time we see him, he's quoting Radchek when he shouts, "Do you want to live forever?"
Yeah.
And we don't see what happens to Rico, but I think the film tells us he's walking the exact same path as Radchek, and is probably destined to be killed, probably by a bug.
Definitely, yeah.
And for what? For fascism? I think there's some really good writing there, and I think Casper Van Dien does pretty much everything the film asks from, and does it pretty well. His delivery of that final line, I think, is perfect.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Really good.
It's really like John Wayne, isn't it? It's like it's got that huge kind of old school Hollywood kind of performance to it. It's really good. But it's what Radchek says to him in the classroom. It's like, do you believe it? It's the exact words of the text. Do you understand it? Do you believe it?
Yeah.
And he's just basically putting them onto the text and making them believe it. Now he's just reading the text and believes it.
I mean, he might never get mentioned with your Michael Corleones or your Travis Bickles, but I think Johnny Rico is a really strong example of a good anti-hero. And CVD, he does do his part for me.
He does, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely the same. You've just got to realise what Verhoeven is doing with the casting here, because Dean absolutely looks the part. Truly magnificent chin.
Yeah. He can fold towels without his hands.
Yeah, exactly. But you look at him and you think he looks like the poster boy for something, which is what he is, even if he doesn't realise it. And you're so right, it's kind of hard to talk about his performance without being like overly disrespectful. But it's fair to say he's not a method actor. He doesn't bring a lot of depth or pathos to the role. You know, the death of his parents barely registers. But that's because Verhoeven doesn't want that. He wants somebody who's going to look good on the poster. And I think any actor who tries to overthink this role isn't going to work.
No.
Yeah, well, at the time he was cast, Casper Van Dien was mostly known for a few recurring roles in some TV series, like we mentioned. And there were some bigger names considered to play Johnny before he was cast.
Right.
Right.
So James Marsden,
Yes.
Keanu Reeves, and Jason Priestley were apparently considered to play Rico.
Right.
Just all the cast of
I was going to
90210.
say, all those make sense, to be fair.
Everyone.
And Mark Wahlberg reportedly turned the role down.
Oh, I've heard that, yeah.
Right.
Honestly, I wouldn't say I'm desperate to change it.
No.
Not at all. Totally works. Verhoeven said he didn't intentionally cast actors who were good-looking but inexperienced. He was going more for the look that you'd see in like Nazi propaganda film. Van Dien did have a military background. His granddad was a Marine during World War II, and he knew how to handle a gun, which impressed Verhoeven during his audition.
Yeah. Actually, I said I wouldn't change it, but if Arnold had been 20 years younger at the time, he would have been perfect as Rico.
He would have been.
He would be, to be fair, yeah.
Yeah, like Terminator age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been unbelievable.
It would have been unbelievable.
Kills them all.
Do you want to live forever?
He's born to play that part.
If AI is good for anything, it's good for Starship Troopers with Arnold from that year.
And Van Dien said that Michael Ironside was mentor on the film as well as in the film. And Ironside gave him advice on how to deliver a line, how to interact with crew members. And apparently he also took on the role of a private on set, so he would go around each person making sure they had enough water.
All right,
The
nice.
water boy.
Yeah.
He said that they sometimes had 1,400 extras on the set and it would take a couple of hours to go around everybody.
I hope you had some help.
Helpful man.
Yeah.
Say that bit in Zulu.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he said one day when he went to pick up his daughters from school, there was a group of 10-year-old boys waiting for him, and they were all shouting like, "Hey, Johnny Rico!" His daughters hadn't seen the film as they were too young. But when they got in the car, they said, "Dad, those boys said they've seen you naked. You've ruined me life."
Yeah, I saw an interview with Caspar Van Dien where he said that since the film came out, not 1 week's gone by where someone doesn't shout at him, "Johnny Rico."
Yeah, amazing.
He's a good guy when you see him in interviews. Nothing like Johnny Rico, thankfully.
No, yeah.
Before we wrap up on Caspar Van Dien, we have our first question from our patrons. So if you sign up as an ATRM patron, as well as the benefits we mentioned at the start, you can also ask questions for us to answer on the show.
Yep.
We have the first one now, and it mentions Caspar Van Dien.
Does.
So Richard Hooley, hello Richard,
Hello, Richard.
Hello, Richard.
has asked, Caspar Van Dien was pretty awful in this movie. Who else ranks as a terrible lead in a decent movie?
Right. Okay.
He disagrees with us, obviously, does Richard?
Yeah, yeah, he does.
So what do you think, Matt?
I'm going for Orlando Bloom in Kingdom of Heaven, but the director's cut. The director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven is such an improvement on the theatrical
Oh, it's
release.
so much better.
If you've never seen it, track it down.
It's a different film.
It's a completely different film. It makes sense.
Yeah. It makes sense.
It
It's
does,
good.
It does. Like, it would be in a conversation for Ridley Scott's best film if it didn't have Orlando Bloom stinking up the joint.
Nah, it's not his best film. Come on.
Well, it'd be in the conversation for top 5, maybe even top 3.
Yeah, top 5. I agree with that.
We'll
Okay,
go
yeah.
with that. But Orlando Bloom, he's supposed to be this brooding hero, but every time he tries to look brooding, he just looks confused. And at the end, when he's trying to give the big speech before the big battle, rise up, come on. He's like a dad who's been drafted into coaches, like son's under 11 football team, and he's trying to give him the big halftime pep talk. So, yeah, that's my choice.
Is Orlando Bloom good in anything?
He's okay in Lord of the Rings, isn't he?
Yeah, because he doesn't fucking do much.
Yeah.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard. Fucking all right.
Yeah, that's a good one, Matt. As for others, I mean, Keanu Reeves has a reputation for not being a great actor, and he leads The Matrix, which is a borderline masterpiece in my eyes. But again, I wouldn't change Keanu Reeves as Neo.
No.
But one film which I do like, where I would change the lead actor if I could, is Masters of the Universe, starring Dolph Lundgren.
How fucking dare you? Arnold, obviously, is it?
Well, great film, obviously.
Oh, William Shatner, fuck knows.
But it seems like all the acting chops have been stolen by Frank Langella. He's brilliant as Skeletor.
Oh, he's amazing as Skeletor.
But Dolph Lundgren can't even believably speak as He-Man, which is a problem. So that's mine.
Right, yeah. I've got like 4.
Go on, then.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing them all. But I mean, we've got Keanu Reeves as like Jonathan Harker and Bram Stoker's Dracula.
He's dreadful.
But is that film bad because of him, or is that film just bad? I don't know. because Gary Oldman's fucking magic in that.
He is.
And Winona Ryder's magic in that as well. So it's that let down, and I can't quite decide on that. But the one that really sticks out, it's not necessarily a lead, but the one that sticks out for me in a film that I really enjoyed, that I'm let down by the performance, is Cameron Diaz in Gangs of New York.
Yeah.
I hate doing this type of thing where I'm getting at people, because I mean that's such a massive opportunity for her to shine, and I just don't think she found it.
No, I like Cameron Diaz as well.
And I love Cameron Diaz.
Yeah,
I think she's fucking fantastic. I mean, A Life Less Ordinary by Danny Boyle, which is where Ewan McGregor and her are both great, and Russell Crowe in Les Miserables. Fucking shit.
Nah, he's great in that. Yeah.
He's shit in that.
Big booming voice, it's great.
Yeah, it's crap. But then again, I hate the film. Everyone's crap in that.
Well, no major award recognition for his performance as Rico, but Casper Van Dien maybe gets a bit of a bad rap for us.
He does. I love him. That's a hill I'm going to die on. I think he's great.
He works for the film, totally does.
Definitely.
Our second lead is Carmen Ibanez, played by Denise Richards. Rico's first love interest in the film. We watch as Carmen heads to flight school to become a star pilot before breaking up with Johnny, perhaps becoming involved with co-pilot Xander Barkalow, and ending the film as captain of her own vessel. They have a crazy pilot, Matt. What do we think of Carmen and Denise Richards?
I think it's an ATRM first, isn't it? Asking about a Denise Richards performance.
And the last, probably.
Likely to be the last as well, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Very much what I feel about Van Dien. When Verhoeven wants a bit of quality in the performances, he turns to Clancy Brown or to Michael Ironside. The casting of Richards and Van Dien, it's all to make a point. It's all to subvert the image that they bring.
Yeah.
And what Denise Richards brings is this wholesome, all-American cheerleader vibe. So patriotic. Wants to do a duty, and do a duty with that big beam and smile on her face. Only thing is, she's doing a duty for a fascist regime. And that's exactly the point of her and Van Dien's performance. You know, is it an amazing performance? No, not in the slightest.
No.
Does it nail every single aspect that Verhoeven wants it to? It absolutely does. So you can't really fault what she portrays on screen.
Yeah.
How much of that is down to what Verhoeven is doing with her performance, or how much of that is her bringing it herself, I don't know. But again, I can't really criticise this performance, even though on the surface I should.
Yeah, I'm similar. I think, like Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards' acting skills have been questioned quite a lot. But when I revisit this film, I think she's okay as Carmen.
Yeah.
And as characters, I mean, Carmen's a lot more intelligent than Rico, so their relationship was never really going to last, probably. But in terms of their arcs, I think they're quite similar. Carmen's not a bad person, certainly not at the start, where she's presented as confident, ambitious, perfectly nice. Too nice when it comes to Xander, sleazing all over her.
Yeah.
But like Rico, I think she's brainwashed by the state into following their ideologies. Whether they understand they're supporting a fascist ideology is another question. And I don't think Carmen or Rico do.
No.
I think they're fighting the good fight. And it's an interesting question the film asks. Are you a fascist if you don't actually realise you're supporting fascism? And that's how it's done for real, I think. A lot of Germany didn't suddenly decide to become awful people in the 1930s who were mostly fooled by politicians and very effective propaganda.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens here with Carmen and Rico. In another film, Carmen would have been a successful woman who leads a good life. Here, she joins the military, and the last time we see her, she's wearing a Nazi uniform. It's actually quite a sad point, I think, the film makes. And what I love is that Verhoeven doesn't make it overtly sad in the movie. He lets us realise that for ourselves. That's done quite a lot through Carmen, so another good character for me.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting performance because of the role that her character has, in that she's given so much responsibility. As a female character in this kind of film, she pilots the biggest ship.
Yeah.
She makes Xander look fucking stupid.
Yeah.
This is the new course. She is one of the most intelligent characters in the whole film. She gets far more than Rico does on the mass test. She tells him where they're going to make out, when they're going to make out, what's going to happen. She's in control of the whole thing, of the whole film. You know, normally it's down to the female character to be victimised, and she is not in this film. She's not victimised at all.
No.
Even from the start, everyone else is making out in the corridor. She's like, no, not here.
Yeah.
And she adds this real innocence. It's not even virginal innocence either, because you know for a fact they're going to go back after prom and they're going to have sex. It's just this feminine innocence that I think Verhoeven is obsessed with. And I think you can see that in RoboCop with Lewis, where she kind of saves the day, really. And it's always underpinned, and Verhoeven always gives really strong motivations to his female characters, but puts them in a man's world where you don't really see how strong that motivation is. And I think that's what Denise Richards brings to it. She does it perfectly because she's just the personification of the upper-class white girl in America, and then subverts it slightly with just smiling through all of these moments where you think she should be panicking, and just smiles through it, and she smiles through it, and she smiles through it. And you can be taken on face value to be a little bit underappreciated by her as a character. So it's got this level of intellect to it, and I think she really shines in the character, and she really shines in the performance.
Well, Neve Campbell was apparently the first person Verhoeven wanted to play Carmen,
right,
but she was already scheduled in to film Scream 2, so she couldn't do it.
Okay.
Right.
And Denise Richards' career at that time had mostly been as a model, and she'd had some smaller TV roles as well. Maybe I'm the crazy one, but I do think she's all right.
Yeah.
I think Verhoeven directs the cast quite well. He makes sure they don't have any big monologues. I mean, that could have been awful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, definitely. And there were a few scenes filmed where Carmen thinks Rico is dead. She starts a relationship with Xander. But this was shown to test audiences. There was a very, very negative reaction to Carmen's character, so those scenes were removed from the final cut.
Yeah. For the point of work that these are normal people who've been screwed over by the state, the audience need to like them, I think. So that's probably a good change.
Yeah. That's one screw over too many, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And Richards also said that during filming, Verhoeven came to it and said he had an idea for a new scene. It was a love scene that would require her to be naked, but she refused to do it because it wasn't in the script and she thought it served no purpose.
There it is.
There we go. Sleazy Paul. Up to his old tricks.
Out of fucking nowhere. Oh, by the way, I've got this idea.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard you doing this film
keep
called
smiling.
Wild Things.
But to be fair, Denise Richards did say that she liked Paul Verhoeven, and she said he was a
Right.
crazy person, but in a good way.
Fair enough. He does seem like that, yeah.
Playing the part of Carmen Ibanez launched the career of Denise Richards, and a couple of years after this, she was Bond girl Dr. Christmas Jones in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah.
She
Wow.
was.
And for us, does okay as Carmen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than okay, I would say.
Christmas only comes once a year.
The third member of our Holy Trinity in the cast is Carl Jenkins, played by Neil Patrick Harris. A psychic with a pet ferret, Carl ends up in the Federation's Military Intelligence Division, masterminds the capture of the Smart Bug, and he uses his powers to help Rico save Carmen in the climax.
Yeah.
He's in this war for the species, boys and girls.
He is.
How is Carl and NPH in the role?
I think there's a common theme here with the performances, isn't it? It's how they look and how Verhoeven uses them rather than anything else. And I think with Neil Patrick Harris, I find he's somebody who tends to portray very similar characters, super smart, very confident, but kind of smug at the same time, almost unlikable. He does that
really smug.
in Gone Girl. But Verhoeven knows that, and that's what he wants. He doesn't want Harris to change that persona one little bit, because he is this super smart. I mean, he's psychic, who uses the gift for entirely terrible ends, but doesn't think twice about it, and, like I say, very super smug about it. So I absolutely hate him, but I'm supposed to, so he's a perfect fit.
Yeah, I think of the three we've talked about, it's probably fair to say Neil Patrick Harris is the best actor. He was already famous at this point. He'd been Doogie Howser, MD,
Yes.
and went on to have a successful career afterwards.
Yeah.
And he's in the film less than Van Dien and Richards, but what he has to do, he does well. I think he's good, as Carl. Like I said, Carmen and Rico seem to me to be decent people who've been duped by the Federation and been pushed down this dark path. This guy, though, this guy is just full-on Nazi.
Yeah.
There's signs that he's a bit of a twat from the start. He takes pleasure in humiliating Rico when he blows up his 35% math score so everyone can see it. And he thinks it's funny when he psychically makes Serrano, his ferret, attack his mother.
Yeah.
That scene where he's testing Rico's psychic abilities, the same as that scene in Ghostbusters, surely.
Oh, it's exactly the same, yeah.
Couple of wavy lines.
It's not your lucky day.
And here, though Carl isn't in the film constantly, it is funny how every time we see him, he somehow manages to look even more like a Nazi than he did the last time we saw him.
He really
Yeah.
does.
By the end, he's just in full Gestapo outfit.
He is,
Leather
yeah.
black coat and cap.
Yeah.
Doogie Hitler MD. It's ridiculous. Terrible human being, but I think Neil Patrick Harris is good in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's great. It's a really good arc for the character. He does disappear into the role that he's given to that point where is he psychic, is he not? Is that the whole point? Do you get fooled by him? I think the makeup's great on him as well, where his face just looks more and more skull-like as it progresses.
Right, yeah.
He's got like dark eyes and his complexion gets whiter. But I think he's definitely the best actor in this film. definitely the best performance, definitely the most solid. Every time the camera cuts to him, you think, yeah, he can do something good with this.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence where he puts it down with a brainstem is fucking wonderful. It's just so well done, so well played out. Yeah, I think he's fantastic in the film. I think he's really, really good.
But working with Serrano the Ferret did cause some problems for the actors, and Harrison Van Dien referred to him as the Ferret from Hell. But in the original script, Serrano was actually written as a frog or a turtle.
Yeah, we're taking a while for a turtle to climb those stairs. I think, to be fair.
Go Bob, Mom, Serrano. All right, I'll be there in 20 minutes.
2 hours later.
Yeah. Just nibbling at her ankle.
Well, after the film, Neil Patrick Harris did go on to have a very successful career, like we said. He starred in the hit TV show How I Met Your Mother, and in movies, Gone Girl and The Matrix Resurrections are two of his biggest.
Yeah.
And here, as Doogie Hitler, we think Neil Patrick Harris is good.
He is,
He's really good, yeah.
He's just missing what shall we talk about.
He really is.
There is a wider cast, and we will talk about more of them as we go, but in those three, Casper Van Dien as Rico, Denise Richards as Carmen, and Neil Patrick Harris as Carl, not a wealth of acting talent maybe, but they lead the film just fine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll always be friends.
Yeah.
This episode of All the Right Movies is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is, therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help, or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now, you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And, special offer to All the Right Movies listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/ATRM. That's betterhelp.com/ATRM. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode.
The middle.
The middle of Starship Troopers is where the film starts to deliver on the promise of the trailers. Lots of bugs, lots of Starship Troopers, and we're diving right in.
Yes.
The scenes following Rico and Co joining Unit Roughneck 2-0 are coming, but first, we're off to Clendathu, home of the bugs.
We are.
So, after Buenos Aires is wiped off the map, the Federation retaliate and launch a full-scale invasion of the bugs' homeworld, Clendathu. A return to the battle we saw during the opening, things go wrong as the bugs open a can of human whoop-ass, resulting in more character deaths and Rico being brutally wounded.
Yeah.
To fight the bug, we must understand the bug. Westy.
Yes.
How's Clendathu?
Unfortunately, that comes after Clendathu because they haven't got a fucking clue what's going on here. After dropped into it, you know, you've got some really, really great moments where they're approaching it and it's very Omaha Beach and everything's getting blown to pieces, and there's some great moments where the spaceships crashing into each other and no one has a fucking clue what's going on, which is so reminiscent of anything during World War II, any kind of invasion where they're just making it up as they go along. So, I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome, awesome sequence, and I'm probably going to say this from now on as for the rest of the film. There's that aliens dropship moment. It's always fucking brilliant. The soundtrack on this bit is fucking unreal. The Clendathu drop on the soundtrack is huge.
Massive.
But it's just the way they underestimate the opponent. There's just the ignorance that's here. Very much in the similar style to like Flags of Our Fathers or Letters from Iwo Jima when they do the attacks on the Pacific. Very much the attacks against the Americans, against the Japanese in World War II. You know, they've got the tunnels, they don't know the terrain, they don't know what they're fighting against, they've got no idea, they've got cameramen on there just nonchalantly giving some kind of, it's a bug planet, an ugly planet. No one has an idea what's going on, and it is absolute carnage, and it starts really positive, and it's terrifying, but at the same time, really well shot, really beautiful shot. And the great thing is, at the end of this sequence, you think Rico's dead. You're like, he's dead?
Yeah.
He's gone. Like, we've seen this before in the start, and now we've seen it again, and the lead character is now dead. great sequence and just an absolute commentary on every single military, everything a military move that America made in World War II or Britain made in World War II. They just didn't understand their enemy, and just like the ignorance of that. It's so well played out.
Yeah, I think this is the first sequence since The Prom was set at night, so it breaks things up quite well from that point of view.
Yeah.
And I like how it replays the opening of the film. Before we jump like 1 year earlier, but this time we see the action from different angles, which I like.
Yeah.
Though it makes it look really odd when Rico shouts, "Get out of here," into the camera instead of at the guy.
Yeah, get out of here now. Yeah.
But the filmmaking, I think, is excellent. The wide shots we get when they land and the infantry are like streaming up the hills, brilliant.
Yeah.
The battle scenes are frantic and really well edited. The editors were Mark Goldblatt and Caroline Ross, who did Terminator 2 and True Lies.
Yes.
So if they're good enough for Ryan Jim, they're good enough for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a blend of location shooting, matte paintings, models, CGI, all comes together brilliantly. And you can tell there's a big narrative plot turn coming soon because characters start getting killed off left, right and centre.
Yeah.
Once Verhoeven doesn't need you, you're a goner. Yeah. And it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
There's some foreshadowing in the shower scene earlier when Shizumi says he signed up because getting into Harvard will cost an arm and a leg. And then his arm and his leg both get ripped off by a bug.
Brilliant.
Foreshadowing Verhoeven style.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
And that moment where Katrina gets dragged into the cave by the bug, that's terrifying, that. Reminds me of kind of like Sam Raimi kind of style.
Yeah, and you never know what happens to her. It's like she's getting her brain sucked out, or she's just going to get feasted on, or what?
Yeah, awful, yeah. I mean, 100,000 dead in 1 hour, apparently, so not the most successful invasion ever. But what Verhoeven does well is that we finally get the bugs, we definitely get the brutality, but he still leaves plenty of places he can go. I think it's excellent.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I'm going to follow this up when Rico's recovered and he's joined the Roughnecks, because everybody's dressed like a Nazi now. And like,
everybody's dressed like a Nazi now.
I know, but the thing is, like, as an audience, you don't even blink at it. You just go, yeah, that's fine. You don't think
fair
twice.
enough. Yeah. Are we the baddies?
That's it. It's that meme. It's only afterwards you go, hang on a minute.
It is that, yeah.
Like, should they be looking like that? I mean, when Carmen turns up, absolutely looking like a Nazi flight commander. Because she's going, Johnny Rico. You just overlook it completely, because we've mentioned before, but it's very Beverly Hills 90210 type dialogue, and it's love triangles, and it's guys letting their egos getting in the way and getting in a fight over a girl, or bonding with the Roughnecks by getting a tattoo together. And I think Denise Richards here, when she's talking about home being blown up, like her delivery of "when it hits me, I can't stop crying," I don't get the impression whatsoever she's done any crying or any thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that delivery is on purpose or not, I'm not sure, but it just adds to this idea that by now all these young guys and girls, they look amazing on the surface, but actually underneath, they're all just slowly turning into monsters.
Yeah. Brainwashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Asen does go to see Rico in the tank, and she says 3 more days. So he's just floating there for 3 days. You'd go mental. But I think there's a good CGI effect there as well, where we see the surgical machine kind of stitching up Rico's leg. That still looks good.
It does, yeah.
And the big plot turn I was talking about then comes in Radchek's Roughnecks showing up. The shot where Radchek appears and we see his mechanical arm and it kind of pans up as he walks between the troops is really good.
Yeah.
Would have been great if it had been Michael Douglas striding in.
Do you reckon?
Or Arnold. Imagine that. From nowhere.
Yeah.
Cigar.
Wider lens.
But Ironside's great as well, obviously.
Yeah, he's great.
And Radchek says, I only have one rule. Everybody fights, no one quits. You don't do your job, I'll shoot you. That's 3 rules at least, surely.
Yeah.
But bringing the Roughnecks in works really well in developing the narrative, developing the journey Rico's on, and bringing in some new characters to freshen things up.
Yeah, and it's around this time when Rico runs into Carmen on Ticonderoga space station, where he gets into it with Xander and they have their fight. And when they filmed that, it took 40 takes and Casper Van Dien accidentally punched Patrick Muldoon right in the face and buzzed his lip.
40 takes?
Yeah.
Kubrick?
No, yeah.
Xander does have a pretty punchable face, to be fair.
Very much so,
Yeah. 50 takes for me. Just keep punching it.
And Ticonderoga, it was named after Fort Ticonderoga, which apparently played a key role in the Revolutionary War.
Yes.
But they look pretty good, I think, all the space station sets.
Yeah.
Better than the sets on Total Recall, anyway.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Definitely.
So deaths come thick and fast on Clendathu, and those characters are quickly replaced by the Roughnecks. Let's find out more about them, should we?
We should.
Yes.
It's not long before the new Roughneck recruits are thrown into the action. After the disaster on Clendathu, there's a new strategy to attack the outer planets in the bug star system.
Yeah.
The raid on Tangu Urilla brings us airstrikes, Rico's promotion to corporal, and a new arachnid in the form of the tanker bug. Westy, you've been tangoed. What do you think of Tangu Urilla?
Yeah, I think this is a lot more focused when you've got Clendathu and then you come into this moment. And this, to me, feels like a massive foreshadowing to the invasion of Afghanistan, which was obviously years later. But it does feel like the hunt for the bad guys. You know, the hunt for Osama bin Laden. They're all in caves. They're all hidden away. The landscape looks very, very familiar. And I think they did a lot of research. I know Verhoeven did a lot of research into thinking what's going to come from now. And I think this whole sequence is just a lot more refined than Clendathu. The Roughnecks know how to kill the bugs a little bit better without any explanation whatsoever. And there's some great moments in this. I think it comes back again to Rico's past and the fact that he's into sports and that he can do backflips and that is the reason that he can take down a tanker bug. Because of sports. USA! USA! Learn some sports. I mean, the effects are quite ropey on this bit, and that's probably the only time I'll say the effects are a bit ropey. And I think it's intentional to say, how far can I push this? But there's so many good bits in this. Like when the tanker bug blows up and Van Dien's just standing in front of it and it's just a carcass behind him on fire.
Yeah.
That is badass. Even before that, when it comes out, then you've got the poster image and you're like, yeah, I love it when you see the poster image in the actual film. And you're like, I can pause that. There's the poster.
Yeah.
But there's so many little bits in this that really add to the story. I mean, that soldier that gets picked up by that flying bug, essentially, if you watch it again, he essentially gets raped. Because you think it's going to stab him, but it bends him over, and it literally just goes behind him with this big fucking spike, and then they rape the brain bug later on, and there's all these elements where it's like, did that really happen? You watch it again, it's so obvious. And it just gets a little bit more nuanced and a little bit more focused and a little bit more interesting from this point, where you just think, right, I'm in a group of people now who know how to deal with this situation. What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think in terms of scale and spectacle, this is a step up from Clendathu.
Yeah.
But also, for the first time, we get a potential moment of connection between the humans and the arachnids. Diz and Sugar take down that lone bug, and we get a close-up of its eye, darting around.
Yeah.
And it's the first time we see any kind of identity
or humanity
or emotion from a bug, and then Sugar just shoots the shit out of it.
Yeah.
That's that then.
Yeah, it becomes almost human. I'm not having that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Rico gets his moment when he takes down the tanker bug, which is very reminiscent of Luke Skywalker taking down the AT-AT in Empire.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
The moment the bug emerges from the ground and then burns Bergie's arm off is really good. There's lots of moments in the film which are really clearly CGI. This is one of them, and that sometimes bothers me when it's so obvious. But here it doesn't. I think because they get the blend of digital and practical right.
Yeah.
And
I know that Van Dien broke a rib and chipped two of his teeth shooting the moment he's on top of the bug because it was so intense. And a fully deserved promotion afterwards for Rico, that.
Yeah.
Fully deserved.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just because her arm's been burnt off, though. If she was still all right.
Yeah. Well, she just vanishes as well. We don't see her again.
Exactly. It's like a really massive slap in the face. Well, maybe I need someone else now.
So in this sequence, to clear the way for the infantry to land, fleet perform an airstrike and wipe out thousands of bugs. Most of those explosions were real, with some CGI added afterwards. And the special effects supervisor was John Richardson, and he had worked on 6 James Bond films and would go on to work on all 7 Harry Potter films. Wow. So to pull off that shot, they set up tons of explosives over a mile and detonated them in order to move closer to the camera.
That is such a badass shot as well.
It's absolutely awesome.
It's fucking brilliant.
He was the effects supervisor on Aliens as well, John Richardson.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the time, this was the record for the longest rolling explosion in a film. It is unbelievable. It looks incredible.
It's like if Chris Nolan had directed Starship Troopers. This is the only scene where you'd be like, yeah, it's fair enough. In creating the moment where the soldiers are dropped into Clendathu by landing craft, Verhoeven watched footage of Allied forces landing at Normandy on D-Day during the Second World War, which is obviously what we'd thought. Yeah. Verhoeven said it was the hardest scene to orchestrate because they had 1,300 extras at 8,000 feet altitude, all running in armour that weighed 32 pounds.
I think you can see the influence in the way that the doors drop like a ramp, like the landing craft at Omaha Beach.
Yeah.
And the shot where the ship lands, we cut from a scale model to the doors dropping and then the real cast all running out, and it's seamless. Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to pick up after this when they finally have some downtime and they have the party on Tango Urella.
At last.
At last. And I think Ironside is particularly great in this scene because he is that classic trope of the lieutenant in charge who is a hard ass. But get on his right side and do your job and you'll be absolutely fine by him. It does make me laugh though. He brings all this entertainment and it's, it's beer, it's booze, it's footballs, and it is his violin as well. Like,
I know.
Why does he get the exception? No one else gets anything personal. Just him and his violin.
Is that being shipped in just for him?
I know. It's mental.
It's a weird looking violin as well, isn't it?
It's really weird looking.
He's like Kilgore though, isn't he? Like Ironside in this. Like Kilgore in Apocalypse Now.
Very much, yeah. But it's so weird, like I get like flashbacks to Master and Commander, which we did a few episodes ago. Like when for Paul Bettany to turn up with his cello, get a big jamming session going on.
Jamming session again. Amazing.
I do also think at this point though, what on earth is Diz still seeing Enrico? Like, obviously he looks amazing, but he's flat as a pancake charisma-wise, and he's been mooning over Carmen non-stop, and she still wants to get in with him. Like, she could do so much better.
I agree.
Enrico doesn't do anything until he's ordered to.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is outrageous.
Yeah.
Get in here, man. Just fucking brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think the party works. A bit of respite from all the carnage, and we get some character moments, like when Rico and Sugar talk about Radchek. The dialogue's a little bit clunky. Sugar's like, you kill bugs, good. But, okay, fine.
You knew him before. Well, that's what happens when your children get... Excuse me.
And this is the third Verhoeven film we've done, so knowing him like we do, the second that Diz gets what she wants, she sleeps with Rico and tells him she loves him. It's like,
Dead.
well, she's dead then.
Dead.
Yeah.
Next scene, out of there, straight away.
Yeah. But good sequence. As much as anything, it feels like we're taking a much-needed breather before the action goes up yet another notch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it wouldn't take me 20 minutes. I'll be there in 5. Although I am a bit nervous and tense. Everyone's shouting outside and playing violins.
Made me nervous.
Yeah, I'm getting really nervous.
So we've talked about Ace and his violin, and the piece of music he's playing is called Dixie. And that was written in 1859 by a composer called Daniel Emmett, who was the founder of the Virginia Minstrels, who were the first blackface minstrel troupe, and it became the unofficial national anthem of the Confederate States during the American Civil War.
So a deliberate choice by Verhoeven.
Yeah, so it's no
course.
accident. No accident here, yeah.
Oh, that sounds nice. Let's have that in there.
What connotations does that have?
Yeah.
On a lighter note, Jay Busey played the violin for real. He learned for the film and he was taught by Verhoeven's wife, Martine, which is a nice story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ah, really nice. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I mean, not sure Ace is a role that required going method, but fair enough.
Yeah.
It's beauty, though. I mean, he's mental.
And that's that on the middle. Some huge action sequences as the humans go head-to-head with the arachnids. Character deaths and introductions coming thick and fast too. Some really good set pieces.
Some great set pieces.
Excellent stuff, yeah.
The crew.
While Starship Troopers might seem like the Paul Verhoeven show, some other people were involved as well, and that's who we're looking at now.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the music and the visuals in the film, but before we get to that, it's the screenplay.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the screenwriter of Starship Troopers was Edward Neumeier, adapting Robert A. Heinlein's novel of the same name. This was Neumeier's second feature film writing credit, having co-penned RoboCop for Verhoeven 10 years earlier. Neumeier and Verhoeven together again at last, Westy.
Yeah.
How would it go this time around?
I mean, it just goes wonderfully together, doesn't it? It's like peas and carrots. It's wonderful for me. I think it really, really works. And I think they know each other so well by now that there's such a trust here where Verhoeven can just say, I want it like this. And you might all go, yeah, I'll make it like that then. To the point where he has to explain the novel to him. Like, Verhoeven's not bothered about the novel. He's not bothered about that. He wants to make something that makes sense. And I think Neumeier does. And I think they wanted to do the same with RoboCop. But I can't help but think how much they were influenced by Cameron, because you've got RoboCop, which was heavily influenced by the Terminator, and then you've got this, which I think is heavily influenced by Aliens.
Yeah.
This would be the pitch if both of them were together. They went to the studio and they went, it's going to be Aliens, right? But it's going to be a lot bigger, and it's going to have really good-looking people, and it's going to be rambunctious action film. And I don't even think they would have mentioned the satire at all. And they just went, oh yeah, okay, we'll do that. And I think he's just taken everything that Verhoeven's thrown at him and just calmly put it on the page. Every actor that we've talked about understands the assignment. Cinematographer, the music, everyone understands the assignment. I think that really is down to Urban Neumeier, who just went, Paul, just give us everything you want and I'll put it down on the page. I think they both sat down, had a couple of drinks and went, we're going to make Starship Troopers and we're going to make it like this. And they did.
So what we're saying is we want the new Meyer Verhoeven satire based on Titanic or The Abyss.
Imagine. That's the real trilogy.
Yeah. Nazi icebergs.
Well, I know that Ed Neumeyer said his vision was to write something that on one hand was let's kill a bunch of bugs, and on the other held a mirror up to society and kind of said, can you see us in here?
Yeah.
And I think that's what his script does. The bug killing part, the narrative's good. I mean, it's not Charles Dickens, but the beats are logical, character motivations are there, character arcs are there.
Yeah.
Makes it easy to buy into and the whole thing easy to engage with as a piece of entertainment. The second part, the social commentary, is the satire. And I think my favourite thing about that in the writing is the theme of propaganda. We see it often with the use of the federal network transmissions. And though Verhoeven and Neumeyer never tell us this, I think all those ads are just full of shit.
Of course they are.
Yeah. I don't believe anything the film tells us that we don't see ourselves. I don't think the humans are winning the fight, like it says at the end.
No.
And the arachnids attacking Buenos Aires, one of the key plot points, I don't think that happens either.
No?
At least not in the way we're told. I think it was a false flag put out there by the Federation to justify going to war.
Yeah.
Something which has happened in our own history.
Well, society needs war to fund society, doesn't it? So
Exactly, yeah. It's the ever ongoing circle. It doesn't even make sense. The Milky Way is 100,000 light years across, and they show us where Clendathu is, and it must be a good 70,000 light years or something from Earth. So, unless it's Dirty Harry firing these meteors, nobody's that good a shot, surely. Unless Verhoeven was just completely ignoring the physics of the situation, which is also possible.
Yeah.
And that TV debate we see between the scientists, where the guy's like, a bug that thinks offensive.
Yeah.
That's far too familiar nowadays. It's like talk TV. You've seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Piers Morgan yelling at people about Prince Harry.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those comments on the power of the media to influence people through propaganda ring true, and they're really powerful to me. I think this film's proof that not only can action films have smart writing, they can have artistic writing, because under all the gore and all the bravado and all the Verhoeven craziness, this is a piece of art to me.
it is. Yeah, absolutely. And then people arguing about bugs look like bugs. And saying they've got bug-like eyes, and they're just like, bugs can think. I find that offensive.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the asteroid is that Carmen changing the trajectory of the ship, and then it hits the meteor, and that may be part of it. It maybe you don't know.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, the writing is definitely the aspect like I needed to look at twice when I came back to this, because that's the part that can throw you off balance on first viewing, which it definitely did for me. And that's definitely true of the dialogue. Like when you get that scene with Rico, Carl and Carmen when she goes, let's make a vow, no matter what, we'll always be friends.
Yeah.
On the surface, that is diabolical. That is like teen soap opera nonsense. It's so clunky and cheesy. But again, it has that purpose of being one thing on the surface and one thing underneath. And if the dialogue is really smart and witty and philosophical on the surface, everything Verhoeven is trying to say would be obvious. And he doesn't want it to be obvious. He wants the dialogue to be these sickly sweet platitudes and Rico going, that's my girlfriend, to Xander during the match.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, the dialogue is some of the worst I've ever heard. But on the other hand, it's brilliant.
I agree. Lots of subtext going on, I think.
Yeah.
And when the script was first written, Neumeyer came up with the idea kind of independently, and it was called Bug Hunted Outpost 9. When he realised the similarities to the book Starship Troopers, he went to John Davidson, who produced RoboCop, and asked him to buy the rights. And Davidson said that he couldn't believe it when the rights were available, considering how many other filmmakers had clearly taken from it, like James Cameron.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are, as you might expect, lots of differences from the book. So, in the book, Rico is Filipino, Carmen isn't his girlfriend, and Carl is actually killed when the bugs attack a research station. Ace is a combination of two characters called Ace and Pat Levy, and in the book, Diz is a man.
So, loads of differences there.
Yeah.
What's the similarities? Can we go through that?
Yeah, well, in the book, Rico doesn't have a relationship with Diz, unsurprisingly. The only real similarity is the characters have got the same names. Neumeyer used the same names. Other than that, it's almost entirely different.
Wow.
And also in the book, Rico's mother dies, but not his father, and his dad actually joins the mobile infantry, and they have a brief reunion.
Yeah, because it started as Bug Hunt Outpost 9, the narrative in the film is basically nothing like the book. Although once they got the rights, I think there must have been a draft where Neumeyer went back through and took some elements from the book.
Right.
Because like Zim throwing the knife at Ace, that is in the book.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And one big change is that the arachnids in the book aren't mindless bugs that actually have atomic bombs and guns. And there's another alien species in the book called the Skinnies, and they have joined forces with the arachnids and the humans who are at war with them too.
Right.
Yeah, the Skinnies are similar to humans, but they're really tall and they've got green skin. So, well, not that similar, actually.
Definitely not.
And in the book, it's one of those atomic bombs that destroys Buenos Aires, not a meteor.
Right. And also Heinlein's troopers, they have power armour, which allows them to jump hundreds of feet in the air and have laser guns. But obviously in the film, they're more like modern soldiers with standard armour and machine guns.
That's right. John Davidson said the power armour idea had to be left out because of the budget. And how Heinlein describes the look of the power armour, Westy, I think the guys who created Warhammer 40,000 had that definitely in mind.
Oh, 100%, yeah, with the Space Marines, yeah. You got the jump troops as well. They do the same thing.
Right, yeah.
And I think the most surprising change is the critique of fascism we see all the way through the film. That isn't in the book at all. The book plays it very straight, and the characters are mostly portrayed as heroes.
Yeah, I mean, Verhoeven said that he wanted to take the world presented in the book and show us how horrible it would be in real life. I would say that rather than being an adaptation of the book, the film is more like an argument with the book.
Yeah.
So, classic Verhoeven. He's always
Yes.
arguing with someone.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Verhoeven said they intentionally made some of the dialogue very pure and innocent, like a 1950s TV show. So it's basically Happy Days in space.
Yeah.
With loads of violence. Like when Carmen says, let's make a vow, no matter what, we'll always be friends. And he said, to me, it's artistic, but to other people, it's really weird.
Yeah.
Like, I can see where he's coming from, and it's just paint and picture.
Yeah, that's his career in a nutshell, isn't it?
To me, it's artistic.
Yeah.
To everyone else, it's weird.
And Verhoeven took inspiration from Nazi fashion, iconography and propaganda. And he said he's spoken to people who've called the film All Quiet on the Final Frontier, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
And he said when the studio saw the film, they said, their flag, it's a Nazi flag. And he responded, no, it's different colours.
Brilliant.
Well, I mean, the Orbo flag was green, white and yellow, and the Federation flag is green, white and blue. So not that different.
It's different colours.
Yeah.
One different colour.
There you are. No argument.
It was designed by Alan Cameron, the production designer, and I think all the designs, like the flags, the uniforms, everything, looks like how the US military would look if it had been designed by the Nazis, which I assume is the intention.
Yeah.
And a pretty powerful idea, I think.
Yeah.
It's like Man in the High Tower, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's got that kind of vibe to it. Yeah, well, there were other references to the military. The boot camp was called Arthur Curry Camp. It's named after a Canadian officer from World War One, who was the first person to rise from the bottom rung of the ladder to become commander of the Canadian Corps.
Yeah, his nickname was Guts and Gators, apparently.
No, that's my nickname.
Ian West boot camp.
Let's not go there.
And Arthur Curry's also the name of Aquaman, which is weird.
Yeah.
Oh, why?
I guess that's where DC Comics got it from too.
Right.
Yeah, and there's other military references throughout as well. So the name of the ship Carmen is on is the Roger Young.
Yeah.
And Roger Young was a World War II soldier who has to be demoted, and that's so he could fight, and he actually won the Medal of Honor when he sacrificed himself to save his platoon.
Right.
Yeah, so he was demoted so he could fight like Zim in the film.
Yeah.
And how Watkins dies at the end
And die like Watkins, yeah.
is how Roger Young died, yeah. I mean, he probably didn't shout, just trying to kill some bugs, sir. But apart from that,
Hey, mate, done.
the brave sacrifice was there.
Yeah.
With a nuclear warhead, either.
And the line, do you want to live forever, that wasn't written for the film. That was said by Sergeant Dan Daly to his troops before the Battle of Belleau Wood during World War One.
World War One. Wow.
Yeah, he apparently said, for Christ's sakes, men, do you want to live forever? To which my answer would be, yes, please.
Oh, quite a bit.
Or longer than the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. A little long on this, yeah.
And the academy where Carmen is trained, that's called Tereshkova Base, named after Valentin Tereshkova, the first woman in space in 1963.
Oh, nice. That's a nice move.
Yeah, Russian cosmonaut. Still the youngest ever woman to fly in Earth's orbit, apparently.
Wow.
So, good for Valentina.
Yeah.
We've talked about the satirical critique of fascism, and one of the main ways Starship Troopers does that is through the use of the federal network transmissions,
Yes.
where they're trying to get people to sign up for the infantry. There's 3, one right at the start, one around the end of Act 1, and one right at the end, which closes the film.
Yeah.
What do I think of those?
I think the first one you see is just so important, where it's like, I'm doing my part, join, this is what
Yeah.
it's going to be about. And the way that the satirize the whole fact that it's just kids, and the kid pops up, I'm doing my part too, and everyone laughs at him. But then you realise that kids pop up later in the Roughnecks,
Yeah.
and they're all, teenagers, and that's probably more true to life of the age that the kids fought in World War II and Vietnam. And I think that's really, really brilliantly done. You get a news report and they just sugarcoat everything. Invasion, but they do it in gold letters. And it's all like, yeah, hey, we're invading something, and hey, everything's going to be fine, and this is where the baddies are, and this is where we are, and we'll show you a graph, we'll show you a map. Why don't you join us? And it's just so well done. And like we said, it is better than RoboCop in that satire because it's just kicked up so many more notches, not even just one.
Yeah.
But the way that he's peppered them through the film is perfect because you just get enough. And this opening sequence where it seems like it's funny, I'm doing my part too.
Yeah.
It's like, well, fuck, that's terrifying if you think about it. But just the way Verhoeven plays it out is just so well done.
Yeah, that ad opens the film, and the music is like really jingoistic and camp.
Yeah. It's really upbeat.
I mean, it's not how you start an action film typically. It's a big statement right from the off. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And to create the opening ad, Verhoeven imitated a Leni Riefenstahl film called Triumph of the Will, which was released in 1935, which is very famous.
Okay.
And the opening shot of Starship Troopers is identical to a shot from that, and it features Nazi soldiers saying they'll do their part.
Right.
Yeah. Cheerful Nazis.
Cheerful Nazis, that's just such an oxymoron.
Yeah.
I think the second ad's probably the one that stands out to me, where we see Nazi Carl demonstrate how to take down a bug.
Yeah.
I always feel sorry for that poor cow that gets fed to the bug.
Yeah.
I know. I think it's amazing how they censor that out and then show everything else.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. And we see the ad for the live broadcast of the execution. The guy was tried and convicted in less than a day. It's like something from 2000 AD.
That's not far off that, I don't think that's far off.
Well, there's a lot of other things that are here already, so who knows?
I mean, Running Man and live executions, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 20 years.
Well, the prisoner we see, he was going to be executed on TV. Do you remember him in the film?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So that's Ed Neumeyer.
Oh, is it?
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, right. I thought it was one of the guys from Beverly Hills Cop who holds up the club. Looks just like him.
No, Beverly Hills Cop and Beverly Hills 90210.
Beverly Hills 90210 Cop. Oh, it's that Neumeyer. It's a great performance, that. It's so much sorrow in his face. Yeah, it's great.
I want to talk about the one at the end because it just sums the film up for me. Carmen, Rico, Cole, all completely fallen in line with what the state wants them to do. And it's just so much obvious brainwashing by this point. We need more ships.
Yeah.
I mean, that just tells you everything about why this whole thing is happening. It's all to do with the money. It's all to do with contracts. We need you. And the whole bit of like, and they'll win. I mean, don't want to get on me soapbox, but, just look at certain people in America and the things that they say and how they say it. This is exactly the type of language that they use.
It is.
It's brainwashing, but stick that music over the top of it, and all of a sudden, it's ultra-heroic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the second and third ads have two clips that are censored. On the commentary for the film, Verhoeven said the cow being killed was censored because they had complaints from animal rights protesters, and the brain bug experiment was censored because the Federation made it classified information.
Right. It's like Verhoeven can't tell the difference between real life and what's in the film.
Yeah.
But that's the beautiful thing. That's why I love him so much, because neither can we.
I know, yeah. For his work as writer on Starship Troopers, Ed Neumeyer wasn't nominated by any of the major awards bodies, but some very interesting and unique writing here for us.
Oh,
I
definitely.
think it's a great script. It's really well written.
Ed Neumeyer was a previous Paul Verhoeven collaborator, and the same can be said for the composer on Starship Troopers, Basil Polidoris.
Yes.
This marked Polidoris' 45th film as composer, and was his third time working with PV after Flesh and Blood and RoboCop.
Yep.
A very experienced head on composing duties then, Matt. How did Basil Polidoris do?
I think he did brilliantly. The music is hilarious. It's so bombastic.
Yeah.
It's so OTT. And it has this really great balance where you can take the music from the action scenes. You could put them over any other action scene from any other film and it would work.
Yeah.
It sounds so genuine. It's not taking the piss. But then when you've got the lighter stuff, like when Carmen slides down the banister on the ship because she's so excited to be a pilot, or the music that accompanies the TV channels, and it's so naff and it's so cheesy and on the nose. But again, that's the point. It's this great mixture of stuff you should take seriously and stuff you shouldn't. And once you're in on it, once you get that joke, it's very, very funny at times. And I mean, to me, a lot of it sounds like the Police Academy theme.
It does, yeah, it does.
You know what I mean? And that shouldn't work, but it's really funny. It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, I mentioned the music in the ad that opens the film. That works great. The main theme he played at the start is good without being brilliant, I think. Very percussion-driven, very militaristic, obviously to reflect the authoritarian, like, utopia that is the Federation, I think.
Yeah.
Loads of the score is based around recurring motifs where the arrangements change depending on how they're being used. Mostly action-based, obviously. But there's some emotional cues in there too. That samba piece that plays during Diz's funeral, that comes from nowhere. I know that Verhoeven said it's the most beautiful piece Basil ever wrote.
Right.
But my favourite moment in terms of the music is what you mentioned before, Westy, the Clendathu drop, where the troops arrive on the planet and the score and the sound effects are kind of intertwined around each other almost. That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say the score elevates the film massively or anything, but it does what Verhoeven needed to, and probably a bit more.
I think it fucking elevates it. Absolutely 100%. I went for a run on Sunday and I've just got back listening just to this soundtrack. It's absolutely massive. It's got such a bombastic, confident tone to it, and it's bigger than the film. And the film's big, but it makes the film seem small when you listen to it. When you watch it on a big screen, it's just absolutely floods the visuals with this huge timpani drums, bam, 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 there's these big minor drops, everything there loads it. And I don't think there's a film that I've seen where a soundtrack kind of overpowers the satire just through pure sound over the fact of the visuals. And it does that. It really reinforces the satire. It's what Rocky does. Rocky, like, kind of gets you in the mood and you want to go out for a run and you want to go and punch someone in the face because, like, dun, 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 dun. It's like, fucking yes! and it really reinforces what Verhoeven's trying to do. And that's why the soundtrack is so important. The ridiculous power of that is going to push you over the line, no matter if you believe anything or not. You've got elements of it in RoboCop, but this is really pushed over the edge, and it's fantastic stuff.
Beautiful.
And Polydorus' daughter, Zoe, she's also a composer, and she said that her father took a lot of inspiration from Igor Stravinsky, and he had told her he wanted to write a sci-fi ballet of madness and carnage. And Polydorus was given 6 months by Verhoeven to compose, and he brought in a percussion specialist to help. And it was performed for the soundtrack by the Hollywood Studio Symphony, conducted by Polydorus himself.
Nice.
Of course it was. Think of a famous film score since the 50s, and there's a decent chance it was performed by the Hollywood Studio Symphony.
Yeah, definitely. And Zoe is in the film as well at the graduation party we talked about at the start. There's a band on stage playing Have I Not Been to Oxford Town by David Bowie. The singer is Zoe Polydorus.
Ah, right.
Very nice. Although something by the Spiders from Mars would have been more appropriate. Surely.
Yeah, surely. Yeah.
It would have been, massively.
There's another child of a famous person in there as well. Stephen Ford, the son of the ex-president Gerald Ford. He plays the commander of Willie's Wildcats in the Battle of Clendathu.
Right.
He's the one on the ship who says, "You kill anything that has more than 2 legs, you get me?"
Right, okay.
Is he not the same guy who's like, remember your training and you'll stay alive, and he's the first one who dies?
No, I think they all just seem the same.
Oh, right, okay.
Blow into one.
All just Nazis.
Yeah, you never can tell.
So another familiar face to Verhoeven when it comes to the music on Starship Troopers, and Basil Polydorus' work here as composer. Very good for us.
Oh, huge. Massive.
Really good.
We talked about how Starship Troopers read on the page and how it sounds on the vinyl. Now for the visuals, which are huge, as we talk about the cinematography from director of photography Jos Vacano, working with Verhoeven for the 5th time, and the visual effects provided by no less than 7 visual effects studios.
Yeah.
Westy, Captain Cinematography, how's Jos Vacano's work here?
Whew. I mean, it's just a sight to behold, isn't it? Because it's so good that you can ignore it and you forget that you're actually watching a film that's been so carefully crafted and so beautifully shot. There's so many beautiful moves, there's so much blocking, and there's so much attention to detail that you'll miss it all. You need to watch this over and over and over again and really stop and watch it and slow it down to realise everything that he's put into this. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, he shot RoboCop with him, and this is the next step up, I think. It's the lighting for me, where it makes it almost cartoonish. There's no kind of sense of realism in this. There's no jolting camera. There's no saturation that's been brought down. Everything is just there, and Verhoeven's like, you know exactly what I want, you know exactly how to deliver it, and there's not a shot where you go, that takes us out the film. Every single shot pulls you into the film, even crash zooms, even whip pans, everything, wide angles, telephotos, everything's in here. He uses absolutely everything he's got, but you can't differentiate between them. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. From a cinematography point of view, I don't really know anyone who's done anything like this that's so beautiful and so ignorable at the same time.
I think one of the most impressive things about the film today is how it looks.
Yeah.
I think it still stands up really well.
It really does, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the visual effects are a big part of it, and we'll talk about that, but Jos Vacano delivers as well. Obviously, Vacano and Verhoeven know each other really well. Vacano was DP on RoboCop and Total Recall, so completing the trilogy. And like those other two, this is well shot, especially the action. And what's impressive, I think, is how they were filming Starship Troopers with lots of new challenges.
Yeah.
Filming with CGI in mind was still a fairly new thing for cinematographers at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So shooting with no subject in the frame, because it'll be added later, directing the actors how to work with that, working with motion control, essential for CGI, filming sequences where one shot has a CGI bug, the next will have a prosthetic bug, all challenging.
Yeah.
And working with 7 effects studios. Different studios have different ways of working in terms of the kind of film stock they use or how they want the film to be developed. So Vacano will be doing setups and have to think, hang on, is this ILM or Mass Illusion doing this shot later on?
Yeah.
All that, and working to strict deadlines and budgets, obviously. It's mad.
Yeah, and remembering it's all shot on film as well. This is all 35mm.
Yeah.
It's not digital where you can just go, I'll try this.
Yeah.
Like, everything costs money.
Yeah. I mean, with all that in mind, the fact that it looked great then and still holds up today, I can't quite believe it, to be honest. Brilliant work. Verhoeven and Vacano's best Hollywood collaboration, for me.
It's so good you can ignore it. That's how good it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some pre-existing footage used in the film too. The shots we see of Buenos Aires after the bug attack were videos taken from the Oakland firestorm in California, which killed 25 people, unfortunately, in 1991.
Yeah, that's the footage the recruits watch at boot camp on the screen.
Yeah.
Right. Fits in well, though. Doesn't look out of place to me.
It's fantastic.
So 7 visual effects studios worked on the film, like we said. So that was Tippett Studio, Sony Pictures Imageworks, ILM, Boss Film Studios, Visual Concepts Engineering, Amalgamated Dynamics, and Mass Illusion. Some of the big boys, Matt.
Was that Matt Illusion or Mass Illusion? Did you get in there, Matt?
Sneaking in there.
A job well done, Matt, if it was you.
Yeah, beautiful work.
Some of my best stuff. I don't know why I didn't understand the film.
It would be understated, if anything, knowing you.
I love all the effects in this. I really like the practical effects. I love the ships, how everything on the ships feels quite clunky. It isn't, really shiny and completely streamlined, but it doesn't have that kind of grim industrial sense again, something like Alien.
Yeah.
I think the bugs still look great. I don't think this is a film where it would benefit if they were more practical based, like the Aryan aliens. I think it's no problem at all that they do have this slightly cartoonish look to them. I think it fits the tone of the film. I think the only sequence I do find a bit dated is that sequence of Carmen shipping the asteroid. That is very kind of late 90s CGI, but not in a good way. But apart from that, really great work from everyone involved.
Yeah, it's the blend for me. Great mix of CGI, practical effects, models, sets, paintings. The practical stuff brings like a weight for the simpler stuff, and then they use CGI for the spectacular and the complex stuff.
Yeah.
I think when there's an oversaturation of digital in a film, it sometimes doesn't look great, but they get the balance right here for me, and it's all the better for it. But I know it wasn't easy. They weren't meant to be 7 studios on the film, but they had no choice. John Davison hired Phil Tippett to do the bugs effects work because he'd done the stop-motion effects for Ed 209 on RoboCop.
Yeah.
And then he worked on Jurassic Park as well. And Davison was looking into studios to work with for the space scenes and the starships, but Sony told him that he had to use their in-house company, Sony Pictures Imageworks.
Right.
And they basically didn't do a very good job. Almost everything was late. A lot of what they did wasn't good enough, so lots of their work had to be outsourced to ILM and those other studios.
Right.
And the release was put back from July to November, largely because of the effects delays. Ken Rolston was the guy heading Sony Pictures Imageworks. Imagine that stress. 4 months late.
And Craig Hayes from Tippett Studio designed all the bugs, which, to save time, they revised some unused designs from, of all films, Tremors 2, Aftershocks, which they were working on at the same time. And he gave the bugs a hierarchy based on the military. So warrior bugs, the infantry, tanker bugs, the tanks, the hop bugs, the air force, and the plasma bugs, the heavy artillery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that works great. And they knew they wanted it to feel like there's thousands of bugs. So some of the shots, like the shots where we see hundreds of warrior bugs on the screen at once, they would take 32 hours to render per frame.
Wow.
So for a 5-second shot, they were looking at about 5 months for rendering.
Yeah, you 24 frames a second, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then once the designs were approved, they then had to figure out how they would move. They agreed that the warrior bugs would weigh about 1,700 pounds, about the same as a polar bear. And they did months of research on bugs and insects, and then did a lot of animatics to figure out how they should move on screen.
Right.
Yeah, they're doing the research and they're doing it properly. That's how you've got to do it.
Yeah,
and an animatic is like an animated storyboard, basically. And the movement of the warrior bugs looks perfect, I think.
Yeah.
That's how Phil Tipper was able to move from stop motion to CGI so effectively, I guess. Totally different technologies, but so much of his understanding in terms of just how things move will have just carried over.
Yeah. So when ILM and Boss Studios were brought in, it was to handle the model spaceships. They built a lot of models. It took 14 months in total to build them all. 2 of the model ships were 18 feet long. Jesus Christ.
Blimey.
And when the plasma bugs attacked the ships and 2 of them crash into each other, Verhoeven had them ram the model ships into each other, like physically ram them into each other.
You'll be loving that, I bet.
Yeah, but I mean, how does he have to do that? It's 18 feet long. That's going to take ages. That's really Verhoeven, that, like.
Yeah. Oh, massively.
It's ridiculous.
And where we see space and the plasma burst through the bridge window, the actors just saw a green screen and then moved lights across it to create the lighting effect of the plasma burst, which is quite clever. Stands up brilliantly, the effect, I think.
Yeah, Verhoeven said it was like an orchestra of lights that they had to match, didn't he? Yeah, yeah.
And the interior set of the Roger Young Bridge, that was mounted on a gimbal and would rock back and forth to simulate the crashes for the actors. And in total, there were 200 effect shots in the movie, which was the most ever in a film at the time.
Ever?
Yeah.
At the time it was, yeah.
Jesus.
I mean, nowadays, the average Marvel film has about 1,600 effect shots.
Yeah.
Avengers Endgame had almost 3,000.
Wow.
So,
okay.
The effects team on Starship Troopers was nominated for an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, the film's only Oscar nomination. Lost out to, do you know who?
No idea. Matt, this is yours.
No, but it's a very niche category.
It's guessable.
We've mentioned Titanic, so is it Titanic?
It was Titanic.
There you are, you see?
Yeah.
I believe in you, even if you don't. I fucking love you, mate.
Won everything. King of the world.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
For us, though, some excellent effects work on Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff.
Unbelievable. Still holds up now, I think.
So a massive team behind the scenes on Starship Troopers, almost all of them already familiar to Verhoeven, and the names we've been through there: Ed Neumeyer as writer, Basil Polidoris as composer, Jos Vacano as DP, and Tippett Studios and the other 6 effects teams, all integral to the success of the film.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone bring in the Ray game, I think.
The end.
The concluding act of Starship Troopers is bugs, bugs, and more bugs. The finale, featuring the big fat smart bug, will be discussed. Before it is, though, we have the biggest battle sequence in the film to get into.
We do?
Certainly do.
So, after receiving a distress call from a colony of Mormons on a remote outpost, the Roughnecks head to Planet P to mount a rescue mission. At the Whiskey Outpost siege, we see the final moments of Radchek, the final moments of Diz, and here, maybe the greatest line in movie history. They sucked his brains out. How's Whiskey Outpost, Westy?
I mean, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just awesome. But this is a bit where it all kind of comes together and becomes a little bit more acute for the viewer, I think, and becomes acute for us as an audience, where you're part of the crew now. You're part of the platoon. You're in there with everybody. It's very Zulu. Yeah. That's got a massive influence on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't go back to like World War II. It doesn't go back to Afghanistan. It goes back to the almost colonial kind of battles that people have. It's a very traditional battle. But it's just, again, just beautifully done with these little elements that come in and these aliens that fly through and then take people's heads off. It just boom, off. What? What the fuck's going on? How the fuck we're supposed to deal with this? Ironside right in the middle of it. And that incredible moment where he goes over the side and does that great, like, really American... I don't know why it's so American, but it's really American, where he just wipes his mouth with his prosthetic hand. He's like, yeah. Now I've got to now do something about this. It's a wonderful sequence. The effects on this are absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Ironside is wonderful in this, and it's a really good death sequence.
Well, that crane shot where the arachnids arrive and we follow the troops up the ramps and over the barricades to reveal hundreds of bugs swarming towards them. Brilliant, that.
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, it's massive. It's a blend of practical and digital effects. It just still stands up. It's fantastic.
And the sound design is ridiculous.
Oh, it's really, really good.
Scotland, it's just...
Yeah. It's good when the troops first arrive at the outpost too, and they find General Owen hiding in the cupboard.
Yeah.
Played by Marshall Bell, Quarto in Total Recall.
And he's in Twins.
Yeah. The guy with the face for a belly. Should have got Quarto in there.
Should have. It's his fault. With his brain sucked out, just in his belly.
Which brain, though?
Well, who knows?
When it all kicks off, though, it's just all so well put together. It's absolute carnage. That guy who jumps off the battalion and the bug, catches him by stabbing him in the back and then tosses him over the barricade to his bug mates. Another guy gets decapitated by the bug flying in and his head, pops off. It's just mental.
Twice? There's one half a face and then there's one whole head. Half a head. Oh, it's ridiculous.
I think there's a hint here as well that it was the humans who started things. These Mormons are colonists who basically just turned up on the bugs' land, so the bugs are basically defending their territory, I think is the idea.
Yeah.
It's who's the bad guys here?
Yeah, exactly. A great sequence, but it's also got the strangest moment in the film for me, and that's saying something.
All right.
Do you remember that shot during the battle where we're inside the fortress, looking up as it pans along the battalions, showing the bugs breaking over the walls?
Yeah.
It's kind of panning left to right, really smoothly. Then all of a sudden, it massively speeds up for about half a second and then just stops. What's that about?
Yeah.
It's like Verhoeven suddenly yelled at the camera operator, quicker, more quickly.
Move. Yeah.
It's really odd.
Yeah, there's a great moment with Rico and Ace as well, where they've got the guns facing forward, and then it's all of a sudden they go bang in unison and just point them up 90 degrees.
Yeah.
In exactly the same direction. It's I don't know. It feels like a music video almost.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. When they're filming Ratchek's last moments when Rico shoots him, Diz was supposed to be there as well, but when they shot the moment the bug comes up through the floor and bites Ratchek's legs off, Dina Meyer fell and was knocked unconscious.
Oof.
It's fucking ridiculous. So that's why she's not even in there at all.
Everyone was in the wars.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I like Radchek signing off with, "You know what to do." To Rico. Brilliant.
You know what to do. It's like Ace Ventura.
Yeah, I am. I'm going to have to talk about this getting killed because genuinely don't know if this is a joke by Verhoeven that in terms of the students and the recruits, the one that Verhoeven kills off is the best actor out of all of them by a considerable distance. That just feels like it's part of the whole joke to me. And I just feel so sorry for Diz, like I said earlier, wasting far too much time over Rico. She could have had her pick of the men.
Yeah.
She should have the run of this platoon anyway, and she's the one who gets killed.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about Dina May's performance that it's the one genuine emotional beat in the entire film. You know, within reason, it's not a tearjerker, but all the same, I'm very sorry to see you go. And it's another scene that, on the face of it, it's quite cliched, the soldier dying in the comrade's arms, but Maya really makes it work. And just in general, it's my favourite action sequence in the entire film, because, like Westy says, huge debt to Zulu, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
All those scenes of the bugs rushing the walls and clambering over, but you sit and you think about it and you think, well, are the actions of colonial Britain really something you should want to mimic? I mean, I don't think they are, and I suspect Verhoeven would probably agree.
Yeah, I think for a film that doesn't exactly take itself overly seriously and has at that point it's trying to make, it's impressive how bad I feel when Diz dies. I mean, she didn't deserve it. And it's pretty textbook the way they do it. Just had a time with Rico, then he actually comes to the rescue when she throws the grenade in the tanker bug. So when the warrior bug turns up behind her, it's like, oh shit, here it is.
Yeah.
But that shot of the bug behind is obviously a CGI composite. And then we're cut to a close-up of Dina Meyer with the bug's legs like prosthetics sticking out of her. Seamless. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreal. Looked great.
A nice bit of action movie writing too when Rico says over the intercom, I hope you have a crazy pilot, and then Crazy Carmen swoops in to save them. And it ends how it started with that final shot when the shuttle takes off from the planet and we get a wide shot where there's now thousands of bugs outside.
Yeah.
I don't want to know how long that took to render.
No,
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what an action sequence. And I think Verhoeven makes a death hit harder than 95% of more serious action films.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And when they filmed the moment she is killed, Dinah May had said to Verhoeven that she shouldn't scream because she's been stabbed through her back and out of her chest, so therefore should have no air in her lungs and wouldn't be realistic to scream. But according to her, Verhoeven just said, just scream.
Yeah, it's not that kind of film, to be fair.
No, just scream, Dina.
Just be thankful he's letting you keep your clothes on.
Now he's looking for realism.
I think she's really good, Dina Meyer.
She is really good.
She said she was asked to read for Carmen, but when she got the script, she was like, no, I'm definitely Dizzy, the tomboy, which she is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's fantastic in the film. Yeah. So all of the planet scenes, including these ones, were filmed in the Badlands of Hell's Half Acre in Wyoming. Torrential rain and windstorm damaged some equipment and led the crew having to evacuate the area for 2 weeks. When they returned, temperatures during the day got as high as 46 degrees.
Oof, scorchio.
Ouch.
Oh, yeah, that'll dry the equipment off, surely.
Exactly, yeah. Whiskey Outpost was a set that took 6 weeks to build, and Verhoeven had the production team take influence from fortresses in Bourges, a French Foreign Legion film from the 30s, and, like you both mentioned, Zulu.
Yeah. Wasn't it in, there was loads of rattlesnakes everywhere as well, and there's so much going on.
Yeah.
I would not want to have been there. No, thank you.
No chance.
46 degrees, torrential rain, rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
I'm fine where I am. Cheers. Thanks.
Some big action and drama at the Outpost then, and sorry to say, Radchek and Diz leave us.
Oh, definitely Radchek. Oh, definitely Diz, yeah.
Oh, really sad, yeah.
Having mourned their loss at Diz's funeral, it's not long before the Roughnecks are back on Planet P. The Roger Young comes under attack, leading to Carmen and Xander abandoning ship onto the planet's surface, while the Roughnecks find themselves returning on a mission to find the smart bug. It all culminates in another spectacular showdown, Matt.
Does indeed.
How is it for you?
I love it. And when Carmen and Xander abandon ship, which is where I want to go from, what I love about that, and you might disagree, John, I don't know, it's just got such a Star Trek vibe to this.
Yeah.
I'm not a Star Trek expert by any means, but if I think of the Enterprise getting attacked, it's rocking from side to side, the smoke everywhere, alarms blaring, consoles are exploding. That's what I think the sequence is going for, and it pulls it off brilliantly.
I think you're right.
It obviously looks a lot better than the average Star Trek episode.
Whoa! You were doing so well.
To the average run. To the average run.
Shit, right, I'll see you later.
Because I tell you what I love in this, that shot of those guys just innocently having lunch at the table before the ship gets ripped in two, and then they just get sucked up into the air. That's incredible, that shot.
Brilliant.
That's amazing. I love that. So it's spectacular. I do love a good last-minute escape sequence. This is a great one. But it's also very much frying pan into the fire, isn't it? Because they land in the bug's lair. This is where Xander gets his brain sucked out. And you know that was always going to be in here, because Verhoeven loves nothing more than a practical special effect where you can mess with someone's face and have their eyes bulge out. And thankfully, this one's a lot better than the one in Total Recall.
How painful does it look when the bug stabs Xander in the back of the leg? Yeah. Really so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how the brain bug gets carried out on top of all the little bugs, like the king. And I could not be more pleased to see Xander go, to be honest.
Definitely.
Having his brain sucked out finally wipes that smug look off his face.
Yeah.
And what I always notice here as well is Xander's final line, which he says to the bug, one day someone like me is going to kill you and your whole fucking race. Not species, he says race.
Yeah.
Surely a very intentional use of that word.
Yeah.
He dies a fascist in a way all fascists should go, getting your fascist brain sucked out.
Yeah, I think that's really important, the way that he goes out, and that getting his brain sucked out is the ultimate demise for the bugs. And the best thing is that he walks in with a fucking nuclear warhead.
Great.
And the bug knows exactly what it is. And he's like, probably one of the worst bits where I cringe, where he's like...
I quite like that.
I don't know if it's great or not. I kind of like it, but I kind of don't want to like it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I like it, but I don't want to. And it's great. It's like, yeah, this is me acting. Look at me. I'm good. It's like, oh, great. And it's like Carmen's like being pierced through the arm that she grabs.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yeah, it's fine. I'm fine now. No worries. Yeah, let's get off. It's a nuclear warhead. All right, it's going to be the Vasquez moment for Watkins. That's absolutely wonderful. Yeah. And then they're just down a tunnel about... what, maybe 300, 400 yards?
Yeah.
And a nuclear warhead goes off, and the worst thing that happens is just a little bit of rock falls in front of them. It's all terrifying. You're in this underground layer of all these bugs, and the brain bugs just escaped, and they've just reported where it's going, but it still gets picked up, and you just get that wonderful moment where you just come into the daylight, and all of the troops are running past, and you're like, oh, yes, everything's going to be fine. Like, everything's all right. And then everything just seems to be all right, which is great.
Yeah, I think the two separate plot lines of Carmen and Rico coming together is classic stuff, but they do it really well.
Yeah.
When Rico comes in with the explosive and the whole tone of the scene changes, works really well. I think the big shout's really good, and Watkins sacrificing himself to save them. Again, I feel it. And I feel bad for him that he thinks he's on the right side, which I think is surely the point Verhoeven's making.
Yeah.
All works really well, but after seeing that behind-the-scenes stuff, whenever I watch this scene now, all I can see is Paul Verhoeven standing in front of Denise Richards with a big broom and shouting, "I'm a bug! Shoot me! Shoot me!"
Ruined it for you. So Denise Richards said that the moment they escaped the bug's lair and the bomb explodes was filmed for real. Richards, Van Dien and Boozy had to sprint through the tunnel and they set the explosives off behind them. Verhoeven told them it was dangerous, so they had to film it last. Like you might die.
Exactly, yeah. Film it last, so if you die, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's really dangerous, but let's do this last.
And they only had one take to get it right, which they did.
Fucking
And that looked really good as well.
It looks great.
Before we leave Bug City, it's time for our second ATRM Patreon question.
Okay.
So this time we have one from Tim Bruchaleri. Hello, Tim. That pronunciation may be miles off, so sorry if it is.
Yeah.
It's fine for me. I'll just say hello, Tim.
Yes.
So, leading on from Xander's death, Tim has asked, question, brain sucked out by a giant bug, floating and suffocating in space, crushed by a giant door. What is your worst way to go in this or any other movie? What do you think, Westy?
Oh, I mean, there's so many, isn't there? You can get into a real black hole with this. Yeah. And I did. And I Googled a lot and I thought, oh, God, I'm not getting into this. I'm going to stick with Verhoeven and I'm going to go Emil, Toxic Waste, RoboCop.
Classic.
That's all I'm saying.
That's all you need to say.
Yeah.
The worst way to go here, I would say, is the brain-sucking bug.
Yeah.
But there's lots of horrific deaths in other films. An alien bursting out your chest while you're having your dinner, like Kane, I can't imagine it's too pleasant.
Yeah.
Bitten in half below the waist, like Quentin in Jaws, or when you're sitting on the toilet, like Gennaro in Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Neither of those is ideal. But I've got two vying for the number one spot.
Right.
One physically awful, and one psychologically.
Okay.
Right.
The physical one is in Bone Tomahawk. Specifically, Deputy Sheriff Nick, who's bisected alive, my God, by a tribe of troglodytes.
Yes.
I'm not going to say more than that,
No.
but it's the most gruesome on-screen death I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the other, the psychological one, is Kowalski, George Clooney's character in Gravity, an astronaut who sacrifices himself to save Sandra Bullock. I mean, hey, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he ends up just floating off
Yeah.
in the deep space by himself.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
I was expecting a surfboard to the face from Lethal Weapon 2, if I'm honest.
In this one, I would definitely agree. It has to be the brains being sucked out. And then in terms of films outside this, like Westy, I went down some dark rabbit holes. I started thinking of the Saw films.
Oof.
I mean, I've not seen them all, but the one that sticks in my mind is a guy who's stuck in a vat and it's slowly being filled up by rotting pig carcasses that are being fed through a blender.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one that is, but I remember thinking, I think this is where I'm going to draw the line.
All of them, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
I think that's 3, I think. I don't know, though.
Yeah. The other one I thought, I went to 7, and I think gluttony in particular is horrendous.
Oh.
It's getting fed to death. Oh, God, no. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Well, from there, we're straight into the final sequence. After Zim catches the smart bug, Rico, Carmen and Carl are back together for a final reunion. Mm-hmm. So how's this for a way to wrap things up?
I love the scene. Zim's back. He saved the day. He's not dead. This is what I mean about the music being ridiculously funny once you get it and understand it. Ultra cheesy reunion with Rico and Carmen and Carl, who has gone full Nazi by this point. He's taught from Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
When he turns up.
He's gone.
He is,
That's
yeah.
the biggest laugh in the film. It's brilliant.
Carl Goebbels.
Yep.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh as well when Ace is like, Zim, man, Zim caught the bug.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like hugging him.
Yeah.
Getting the headlock.
How did one guy catch that thing? It's massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
The part that always stands out to me here, though, is when Carl uses his psychic ability on the bug, and he's like, it's afraid, and everyone
Yeah.
cheers.
It's afraid. Yeah.
Yeah, no humanity or compassion left by this point.
That's heartbreaking for me, that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fucking heartbreaking.
And then Carl says, now we know how they think, we can kill them. Not, we can work out some understanding with them.
Yeah.
And I love how Verhoeven shoots it as if it's a genuinely happy ending, but what's
Yeah.
going on is, like, horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great way of showing that how nobody ever sees themselves as the bad guys, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly the same. I think it's the perfect end to a promotional film. Fear is power, and violence is power. It really resonates with me, is that we have that outpost sequence where we're so scared for Resnick and we're so scared for all the soldiers, but at the end, all the humans look like the bugs. they're all cheering and they all look like this horde of people with no identities whatsoever. Just this horde of idiots who are just screaming and shouting and want violence and want death. And I think that's a perfect way to end a propaganda film where, like, we have won even though we've lost. And the next thing that comes up is, join us, you, be part of this.
And in this part, Rico asks Carl if he's responsible for psychically guiding him to Carmen, and Carl says that's classified. But in the original scene, he admits that he was responsible, but the fact he can now read humans' minds is classified.
Yeah, that's set up in that Ghostbusters scene with Rico in the first act we talked about, where Carl says, I can't do humans yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will, mister. Should have said that.
Yeah.
And with that, and following the final Federation ad we talked about, things are wrapped up. A happy ending, but not really, is it?
No.
Not really.
No, not really.
It will be eventually if you join.
Yeah.
Reception and awards.
That's the story from behind the scenes on Starship Troopers, and it burst into cinemas in November 1997. How it was received is a tale all of its own, and Matt, I think you're going to tell it to us.
I am indeed. So, the production budget, that was $105 million, and it only took $121 million at the global box office, which means when you add in the marketing budget, it was a money loser. And the producer, John Davidson, who we've talked about, he said he thought one of the reasons it failed was that it was originally scheduled to be released in the summer of 97, but the studio pushed the release date back. As we've said, that was partly because of the huge effects delays, but also so it wouldn't be in direct comparison with Wolfgang Petersen's Air Force One.
Oh, come on.
Terrified of Air Force One?
Jesus Christ.
I know it's Harrison Ford, but still, come on.
I saw an interview with Caspar Van Dien where he said he was told by box office experts that if Starship Troopers had been a PG-13 rather than an R rating, it would have made twice as much money.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe, but I doubt we'd still be talking about it now if it was all nice and wholesome.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. But what also didn't help were the reviews. Verhoeven said the studio promoted the film as just another bang bang movie, in his words. And a lot of critics at the time didn't realise it was meant to be a satire. Verhoeven said he would get verbally attacked in interviews in countries that historically had problems with fascism, such as Italy, such as Germany. And one critic said, "What is this meant to be, the new Star Wars?" And Verhoeven replied, "Yes, but they're all fascists."
Brilliant.
Well, as for the critics, we'll start with Roger's Roughnecks.
Okay.
How did Roger Ebert rate the film, do you think?
Oh, it's unfair because I know this, so I'm not really going to say.
I think he would have got it, but I'll say 3.
I'll say 2.
It was. What a good guess, Westy. It was 2 stars out of 4.
Beautiful. Right. Okay.
And he said, the bugs aren't important except as props for the interminable action scenes and as an enemy to justify the film's quasi-fascist militarism. There is a sly satire. The action sequences are heavy laden with special effects, but are curiously joyless.
Right.
There's nothing sly about that satire, Rog.
No.
He's missed the point there a little bit.
The review in the Washington Post from the time is similar, but also quite funny. It starts by saying, Starship Troopers follows the escalating hostilities between the galaxy's 2 dumbest species, bugs and fashion models. The outsized insects are bent on destroying humankind, and only Doogie Howser and the cast of Beverly Hills 90210 can stop them.
Fair enough.
Brilliant.
And damningly, Verhoeven's tone, which varies from calm to cynical, is so inconsistent that it's impossible to decide whether he's sending up the Third Reich or in love with it. I'm not sure the tone is inconsistent. He's just got 2 different tones running at the same time, I think.
Very fucking consistent.
Yeah, I think it's really consistent,
Yeah.
Empire magazine seemed to get it a bit more. They rated Starship Troopers 4 out of 5 and said, Verhoeven's cast are deliciously unaware that they are in part the fodder for an $80 million urine extraction project.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think they're very aware of that.
I think they were aware as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't marketed properly, and a satire is not a typical way to spend a $100 million budget. No. So I'm not surprised that some audience members missed it, like us. But if you're a critic, and critiquing films is your job, there's no excuse for me.
I mean, for fuck's sake, just have a look at what's going on. You've seen RoboCop.
Yeah, exactly. You know Verhoeven.
Yeah, it's not the first time you've seen anything like this.
No.
especially in the late 90s. Come on.
Doogie Hitler in there. It's not exactly subtle, is it?
No.
That's the fourth time you've said Doogie Hitler.
It's a third.
It's a third, sorry. I'm not going to tire of it.
There will be a fourth.
There will be.
And so today on Rotten Tomatoes, Starship Troopers has a critics' approval rating of 72% and 70% from audiences. And on IMDb, it's currently with a rating of 7.3 out of 10.
A little lower than I was expecting, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, a strange journey for Starship Troopers since its release. A commercial and critical turkey in 1997, but its reputation has improved significantly since. And I think it might be best summed up by Verhoeven himself. I saw an interview where he said, "People didn't get it at the time. Now, though, I get asked, how come after such a beautiful movie like Starship Troopers, you did a piece of shit like Hollow Man?"
Beautiful movie.
Sequels and influence.
Despite the film flopping pretty spectacularly at the box office, Starship Troopers spawned not one but two live-action sequels. Starship Troopers 2 Hero of the Federation came in 2004, directed by Phil Tippett.
Right.
And then, in 2008, we got Starship Troopers 3 Marauder, which was written and directed by Ed Neumeier.
Okay.
You know those written and directed by Quentin Tarantino t-shirts you see people wearing?
Yeah.
Think we'd sell many written and directed by Ed Neumeier tops?
Yep, I'd buy one. So we'll sell one.
Ed would buy one, says two.
So that's two.
The sequels were straight to video and have a reputation for being shockers, so we're going to skip right over them and stick with the original.
Okay.
So where do we see Starship Troopers' legacy and influence today, do we think?
I think because it's a film you don't necessarily get on that first attempt. It probably doesn't have the influence that it should, because I imagine there's a lot of people like me who didn't get it on first viewing, but they probably haven't gone back and given it a second chance and realised what was going on in it. And because of how Verhoeven approached the casting, it's not like it's a film where you can say, oh, it launched this person's career. It wasn't that type of film either. And I think if you're someone who was born after this came out, I would totally understand if they looked at the poster and went, Denise Richards, Casper Van Dien in an alien invasion film? I don't think so. No thanks. So it's probably not had the influence that it should have done, or the legacy. And I think really in legacy, it's probably just Verhoeven's last great film, sadly.
Yeah, I think the film definitely has a legacy, mainly for me as a science fiction satire. I think like any genre, science fiction has its subgenres: action, horror, cerebral, dystopian, lots more. And I think in cinema, one of the least explored is the sci-fi satire. Some of the biggest science fiction stories ever are satirical, but it's usually in other mediums, like Judge Dredd or Watchmen in comic books, or The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in literature.
Yeah.
And this, Starship Troopers, proves that not only can satirical science fiction be done in cinema, it can be done really well and have a prescient message. Unfortunately, I don't think many filmmakers have followed in its footsteps.
Yeah.
The Truman Show, maybe? District 9, possibly? I say, let's have more films inspired by Paul Verhoeven, please.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think it's the ballsy nature of this and the ballsy nature of what he's trying to commentate on that really makes this film shine. And I don't quite think we're there yet. It's kind of like Doctor Strangelove, where we're going to come back to this and go, oh, right, this makes sense.
Yeah.
We didn't quite know what this was saying. And there will be an audience for this, but I think it's far, far further in the future than it is for us. And there's a lot of time for people to get this and go, actually, yeah, this is a film that makes real sense.
So the sequels to Starship Troopers don't stand up to the original for us, and there have been talks of a remake. Would you fancy that?
No,
No,
not at all.
not in the slightest.
Me neither. Might be nice to see some new films go down this typical science fiction path, though.
Yeah, definitely, but not a remake.
You could only make this one particular way, and it's being done.
All the right movies ranking.
And we are at the end of Starship Troopers. That's the full story of how it came to be. Just one thing left, and that is to give the film the ATRM ranking treatment.
Yeah.
Westy, you know what to do. Your summary and score for Starship Troopers, please.
It sucked my brains out. There's only one thing to do, and that is really just address how much I love this film, and the reason that I put it up, and the reason that it's so important, and the reason that cinema is so important, and the reason that film is so important, and the reason that filmmakers like Verhoeven are so important, that they're fearless, and I love that. And they're putting stuff out there, and people still get it, and it still resonates, and it's still worthwhile. One thing I can't stand is watching a film that has no fucking substance and has no fucking point. This has so much substance. It has so much point. It has so much to say, and it has so much to do. It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination, but for me, it's up there in a perfect film that really needs to punch Hollywood in the face in the late 90s and say, hey, we can still say something, and you haven't got control over us. So for that reason, it's a 9 on 10.
Yeah, great film to revisit this one for a few reasons. Always good to cover a Paul Verhoeven movie, and nice to complete the Dutch trilogy.
Yeah.
It's based on a classic science fiction novel. It has a interesting cast, who I think are okay.
Yeah.
All great.
Mostly, it's interesting in that it's a blockbuster with subtext and a message, which isn't usually the case in this kind of movie. It does the things blockbusters do, and does them well. The spectacle is exciting and well put together when it comes. The blend of practical and digital effects still looks excellent to me. But it is that critique of fascism, how it can take hold and where it leads, that gives this film a pretty unique place nowadays. Artistic action films aren't too common, but Starship Troopers is definitely that. And it's for that reason, and the others I mentioned, that I'm giving it also 9 out of 10.
Lovely. Love that. Come on, Matt, don't fucking let us down.
Your summary and score for Starship Troopers, please.
I'm so glad I did give this film another chance back in the day. And when you go through it in the way that we have, when you take it apart, when you see what's there in the writing, what's there in the direction, how Verhoeven is using the actors, how he's dictating what the music should be, it just makes me want to go back in time and slap my 17-year-old self around the head and think, how could you miss all that? Like, why didn't you give it a second chance earlier on?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that then becomes its biggest flaw for me, because once you do realise what's going on, that's also the reason I don't come back to this film a lot, because there's no emotional content or journey in there to really get your teeth into, and that's very deliberate by Verhoeven.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Get that, yeah.
But just keep me at a remove ever so slightly, and obviously the performances you've got to take in the right way as well as you do some of the dialogue. But having said that, I don't know who would have the balls to make this today. And it is such a unique film. And I do think it is Verhoeven's best film. So it's also getting a 9 for me.
Nice.
999. Well, we also put this out there to our Twitter or X followers. Would you like to know more?
Kind of.
Yes. We'll see.
Taking your life in your hands there.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, #Alaska, at Desert Granite, said, everything changed on my views when I listened to the director commentary. The entire film is designed to be a propaganda film. It makes it one of the best sci-fi films ever made because of the critique of our culture, still to this day. 10 out of 10.
Wow,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Okay, agree with that.
I think most people went through the awakening moment with this film where it was like, hang on a minute, they're all fascists.
Yeah, they just wake up one day.
Dressed as a Nazi at the end. What's going on?
I'm 25 years old. This makes sense.
Labif at LaBeurFM said, I remember a magazine gave it the best gratuitous shower scene of the year award. I assumed it must have been meteor shower and was confused on where all these movies with meteor showers I was missing were.
Right.
9 out of 10. Delivers on all shower scenes.
Fair enough.
I mean, gratuitous shower scene of the year. Verhoeven owns that award. Surely.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he
Every
does.
time.
He's took it home. And one of our patrons, Liz Booth, said, we need more dark satire from Paul Verhoeven. I mean, that's true enough.
Yeah.
I took it on face value as a teenager, but as an adult, seeing it set in a fascist America with Nazi references blew my mind.
Yeah.
Ahead of its time. Land of the free, home of the fascist.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Like that.
I think if Liz is pitching for a new national anthem there, I can't see that catching on, to be honest, Liz.
No, maybe give it time, like, to be fair.
And altogether, our followers rated the film as, what do you think?
Oh, I'd love it to be a 9.
Yeah, go on then, I'll go 9.
It was 8 out of 10.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
That's fine.
So that gives Starship Troopers 35 out of 40 in total. Maybe it will live forever.
Maybe it will be 40-40 in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's all we have on Starship Troopers. We hope you've liked it and it hasn't been a trip down washout lane. Next time, Luke, Westy and Matt are only seeing what they want to see. They don't know they're dead. As they talk M. Night Shyamalan, Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a big one.
Spooky one. Mm-hmm.
Well, in the meantime, to find out more about becoming a patron, supporting what we do, and accessing our archive and bonus episodes, please visit patreon.com/alltherightmovies or click the subscribe link on Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
Please subscribe, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all of your other podcast platforms. 5 stars, please.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Guarantee citizenship.
Yep.
Socially, you can keep up with All the Right Movies on Twitter or X, where we are at ATRightMovies. We post threads on there that tell the stories behind classic films, where everything we post has been said by someone involved in the production or comes from 3 separate sources, the same as on our podcast. So please do check that out.
Definitely.
You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/alltherightmovies. On Instagram and Threads, we are at all_the_rightmovies. On Blue Sky, we are at alltherightmovies.com. We have a Facebook group where you can join in with lots of movie discussions, and our website is full of great features and at alltherightmovies.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
We're all off now to look at our next podcast, Until We're Dead, or Until You Find Someone Better.
Good luck with that.
Come back for The Sixth Sense, and as always, thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks,
yes,
guys.
thank you guys. Massively appreciated.
Yes.